TikTok time to rock. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everyone who's watching from all over the world. We apologize for the technical issues. We had to run through everything up to the very last thing, which was shutting both our systems completely down and restarting. Anyway, seems like it worked. Yeah, we were just totally out of sync with a delay and everything else. So anyway, think it worked. I think it worked. I was about to just. If the shutting down didn't work, I was just going to reschedule this and think there's just an internet problem right now. But Christopher, I asked you last time, but you have to prefer one or the other for friends, Chris or Christopher. You got to pick one, and then I'm gonna stick with that.
I changed my name whenever I joined to Chris Nye, the Talmud Goy.
Yeah, I saw that.
So I'm going with Chris, I guess, for right now.
Okay, Chris. Hey, what's this? We've got JP not FP says, I denounce the Talmud! Well, then you denounce the Quran, buddy, because according to Chris here, what did you estimate? Like 70 to 80% of the Quran is actually taken from the Talmud?
It's right around there. It's mostly, like, so if you go by the sheer, like, if you just count, hey, these are all the different ideas of the Quran, probably closer to like 60 to 70% of them are Talmudic, but because of the bulk of the Quran is repeated material, most of that repeated material is from the rabbis, therefore most of the Quran is from the rabbis. But pretty much all the stories are from the rabbis in general, not necessarily the Talmud, but also the Midrash. Then the rest of it is from Zoroastrians and Christian/Gnostics, for the most part, Manichaeans, and Yemen.
All right, just sending this out. We're live going through Islamic teachings that were plagiarized from the Talmud. Is that an accurate description?
Yes.
All right. Well, we'll let people come in for a second. I'll take a couple of questions here at the beginning. And I denote the Talmud. Oh, here we go. It's the Talmud without the rabbinical conversations. That's what the Quran is. That'd be a good description.
So definitely
right?
a paraphrase. There's times where it just removes like Rabbi so-and-so said it and just says what the rabbi said, and it has that in the Quran. I think that's hilarious.
Oh yeah. By the way, that's a little that's a good title for some sort of video. I know you've already made videos. I got a link to one in the description, but title something like how the Quran is a paraphrase of the Talmud, or even what would also be funny, how Islam is Talmud fan fiction. For some reason, people like fan fiction. The Talmud, the Quran is Talmud. The Quran is Talmud fan fiction.
You could definitely do that about Joseph, because the Talmud adds a lot of stuff about Joseph with like him being so beautiful. They really overemphasize his beauty to the point where he has like curly long eyelashes and he like twirls his hair and like walks on his heels or like walks on his tippy toes to like perk his butt up, because they're like trying to overemphasize how majestically handsome and sexy he is, and all the women are like itching to look at him, so like they're on their buildings like looking through cracks in the walls to see him walking down the street. But the Quran kind of, incorporates a lot of that beauty stuff, including the women cutting their hands because he's so beautiful.
Beast. Mountain Grown says, wow, not even giving credit. I know, right? He could at least say, hey, I stole all this stuff from the Jews. Let's see. We have AP on DebateCon. Yeah, AP. Anyone see AP's debate? I didn't watch it. I was doing laundry and such because I'll be traveling. Let's see. Who saw the debate? Guys? Anyone want to comment? We're just giving everyone a couple minutes because we were late, and then everyone can jump in before we start. We don't want anyone to miss anything. So, what are we going to be covering today?
Mostly marriage and the views on women, and also paradise, and then some random topics at the end if we have time. Some of them I think people are going to have a lot of fun with.
1 second, 1 second. Dublongo says, oh, that's great. Can you give the Quran chapter and verse? I would love to learn that. I didn't see what she's responding to here. Indian martial arts research. Is that the one I already showed? Let's see. Where is it, man? Where'd all your stuff go? Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, that was a person. That was the person who said, the save one man, save humanity. Yeah, that's Surah 5, verse 32. Surah 5, verse 32. So Surah 5, verse 32, definitely stolen from the Talmud. It's not in the Torah. It's something that a rabbi at some point argued. And it's interesting because 532 says that Allah revealed to the children of Israel, if anyone killed a man, it's as if he's killed all mankind, and then they'll leave some stuff out like that. But when they quote it, they just say, hey, Islam is religion of peace. How do you know? Well, the Quran says that if anyone kills a man, it's as if he's killed all mankind. Wow, great. And they leave out that verse specifically says this was revealed to the Jews, and that it's actually a quotation from a rabbi in the Talmud. So now rabbis in the Talmud are inspired prophets of Allah, apparently. And they leave out that the very next verse, which was revealed to Muslims, calls for all sorts of killing and dismemberment and crucifixion on people for committing the vague crime of making mischief in the land. And by the way, just so you know, in places like Iran, when they toss like a Christian who's preaching, if they catch a Christian preaching, like even like underground stuff, they'll throw him in prison. Or if a woman isn't wearing a hijab, they'll throw her in prison. And they will frequently use the charge causing corruption in the land. And so it's actually 533. But that includes death penalties and so on. So it's just, anyway, the point is, it's interesting that there's a verse that calls for all sorts of violence and bloodshed, and they'll go to the verse before it, which is for the Jews. They'll cut out the part that this is for the Jews, and then they'll leave out that it comes from the Talmud, and then they'll act like this is what Islam teaches and so on. So anyway, I hope that helps. It doesn't come up nearly as much as it used to. I mean, I have a video of Barack Obama quoting it and all sorts of news articles and presenters and so on. But fortunately, people caught on. Guys, I keep telling everyone, like the big changes occur when everyone starts using it. As long as it's like me or someone else on YouTube saying it in a video, it will continue. Most people are not paying attention to what I say in a video. It's when everyone starts using it, and then everyone starts using a response, and then it doesn't work anymore, and that's when they have to finally drop it. But I occasionally hear it pop up again. Fortunately, tons and tons of people know how to respond to that now. Good times.
It is also worth noting that the two verses before that, so 530 and 531, are also from the Talmud.
Yep.
Well, it's from the Midrash specifically. So there's three different Midrash that have it, but they all predate Islam. Or one of them's possibly contemporary or slightly after Islam. But it still has a Jewish context. So that whole passage is Talmudic or rabbinic.
I see a bunch of people talking about, I was looking through the comments, see a bunch of people mentioning Daniel Hakikachu. Yeah, apparently he had a pretty rough debate. Haven't seen it. Definitely. We want to, I'm going to be traveling, but when we get back, we definitely want to review several of the debates that just took place. What I heard, maybe you guys can confirm, but what I heard was Andrew came out and argued that just basically generation after generation after generation after generation of first cousin marriage led to problems and leads to, over many generations, it just leads to like average IQs being way less and so on. And apparently Daniel's response, got to see it for myself, but apparently Daniel's response was that low IQ societies are better. And I'm thinking like not better for like scientific innovation or any like what better for what? And I'm guessing he just means better for Islam, right? And that would kind of be a pretty amazing admission. Like the best thing for Islam, the best thing for Islam is if everyone is as low IQ as possible. That's wild stuff. Wild stuff. It's good. That's what's cool about Andrew is he'll always get them to admit something that's very, very damaging. Like when he debated Muslim Lantern said, "No, Muhammad did not harm this little girl at all. He did not harm Aisha at all. There was no harm." And Andrew did the math right in front of him and what that said about Muhammad's
2.1 incher. Yeah.
1.8, man. Don't exaggerate.
Oh, 1.8. Yeah.
1.8. Right. Don't be exaggerating Muhammad's manliness here. So he actually did the math on what Muhammad would have needed to be like if he did not damage a 9-year-old girl. Anyway, crazy times, but awesome good times. All right, let's just take these first couple super chats and then we can jump into your presentation.
Yep.
Uninspiring Philosophy says, so what you're saying is Momo is like Iggy and takes things that are not his. But seriously, how do Muslims believe this? Do you know what that's about? Who's Iggy?
I have no idea who Iggy is. I was more chuckling about the Mormon.
There's Iggy Pop. Iggy
Azalea?
Iggy Azalea. She's a singer, right?
Yeah.
I think she was the one who was twerking in Saudi Arabia and stuff.
Yeah.
Iggy takes things. We don't know what you're talking about. We're going to assume that you're just drunk right now. The Talmud is full of tricky logic puzzles, and anti-Semites and the Quran twist it as if they understand it. Is that true or not?
There is a lot of various logic puzzles, and the rabbinic commentaries especially have a lot of them. And the way that they try to explain it can be pretty obscure. But I don't know what he means by anti-Semite. Oh, anti-Semites twist it.
Twist it, yeah.
The Talmud has okay, yeah. Yeah, they do. Especially because you have to understand the context of the entire... So you have to read basically all of it in order to understand it.
All of the Talmud or all of like a passage? Or all like a section?
All Talmud. Because like the documents in Sanhedrin is the high court rulings. That's going to be... The context of that is absent from every other document that talks about an event. So if you're talking about like the punishment for abusing a child, like sexually... that is allowed in Sanhedrin. It seems like it allows child marriage in Sanhedrin, but if you don't read the other tractates, you don't get that they're deeply anti-child marriage. So you have to understand all of the context for any specific topic to get what's happening generally across the different tractates, because each tractate's dedicated to a specific topic. So you have to read all of them to understand the rabbinic position and then like cross-reference them. It's really tedious.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind eventually getting a couple of, or at least one, like just Talmud scholar, someone who's been studying it all his life, and then going through the quotations of like the Groiper, not to defend the Talmud, but just to clarify what is being represented accurately and what's being represented inaccurately. If something is messed up and it's being represented accurately, then we can just say, okay, that is being represented accurately and it is messed up. But for other stuff where, you've seen it where they'll quote something, but it's a rabbi speaking. They'll act like there's a command to all Jews, and then like right after that, it says it's another rabbi who says the exact opposite because it's this ongoing debate about something and so on. But anyway, yeah, it would be good to clarify that, and then we can condemn things based on knowledge and not just based on memes. We had hi Chris number 2. You're Chris number 2 because Speaker's Corner Chris is Chris number 1. The original Talmud is invariably more humane than the Quran's version. Abraham Geiger wrote the original work on this, not just Talmud, but Midrash. Is that, do you agree with that?
He wasn't the first one to write it. So he's a German scholar who wrote, I think back in like the 1700s, on the Talmudic and Quranic connections. He also went through a lot of the Midrash. Him and Rodwell did the most amount of work on this. You have some other ones that are more modern, but in the 1800s was kind of the Renaissance in German and in England of writing on the connections between Islam and the Jewish sources. Abraham Geiger did a lot of work on it. A lot of his work is still in German, and I've only been able to go through bits and pieces of it, and some of it had to be done through like AI Translate, which was not great.
But he does have AP read it to you, man.
My mom was born in Berlin. That's the saddest part. I don't know German.
That is sad indeed. Let's see. Apostate of Allah, she was with me last night, said, please don't ask questions. Just get someone to do something with this. R. Kelly's Ignition came to mind, and I said, let him get that zut zut. This is the remix of Al Zut's Mission. I'm not familiar with that. R. Kelly. R. Kelly's Ignition. Oh, wait. It's not the Jeep song, is it? Serious academic question. Is AP hiding in the Talmudic footnotes or just running laps around YouTube again? AP just debated. I'm still interested in hearing from anyone who watched it. Thanks for the, yeah, he's debating, he debated Javad Hashmi, who's like a Harvard scholar, really like evil, nasty guy, but he has more credentials than the Dawa guys. Thanks for the work. Yep. It'd be fun to see a unique content-only Quran. Hey, that's what you need, man. Hey, dude, seriously. Find everything in the Quran that we can actually trace to some other source, like the Talmud or some sort of weird apocryphal gospels and stuff like that, right, and see what's left. It'd be like 7 pages.
We have a spreadsheet we're working on that we're doing that exact thing right now, because I want to get a statistic on what's original and what's not. And I have a list of some of the original stuff at the end of this presentation. So
and that's awesome, especially when you think just over and over again in the Quran, the accusation against Muhammad is that he's just plagiarizing stuff from other people. If you're like, 92%, we actually can say where it came from. Fun stuff.
Right.
Fun times, guys. Surely your team
be done probably around next year.
Oh, nice. So, surely you're teaming up with Sam for the Muslim debate. Yeah, that'll definitely be happening soon. That line about harming one person being like harming a whole world, and whoever plagiarizes a verse, it's like copy pasting the whole Talmud. I'm stealing that. Hang on. You might want to steal that. See, this is what you have to do, Chris. You're making videos. This is the sort of thing. Like, people come up with funny comments, and then you steal them and you say them in a video, and then people think, wow, this person's so witty, and they'll think it's you.
I've done that once. So I got one of the guys in my comment sections to join the project because he left such a funny comment that I had to invite him to work on it. And it was basically like the idea of the Talmud and the Quran, where it's like, okay, how the Quran uses the Talmud is like, if I were to write a book on Norse mythology, and I would to present it to you as an academic and say, okay, this is all of the history of Norse mythology, and then you open up the first page and it's talking about Iron Man and Thor from the Marvel comics. That's what the Quran is doing to the biblical stories. It's treating thousands of years later fan fiction as truth, as historical fact. Mm-hmm. It's the same level of idiocy, really.
Yeah, so it'd be like, have you not heard of William Wallace? He said, they may take our lives, but they will never take our freedom. And I'd be like, hey, come on, you stole that from the movie Braveheart. You don't actually have records of this dude saying that stuff. You obviously stole that from Braveheart.
Right.
Welcome to Islam, guys. Just received approval from our elders to teach another class on Islam at church. Going to go hard on the dilemma, but not like the al-zut. That's what we need everyone in every church doing. If every church had like one person who knew the Islamic dilemma, Dawa's cooked, because then when someone else runs into a Dawa guy, they can always go to the person who knows the Islamic dilemma and stuff like that. But if we get to the point where it's like people are like teaching it in Bible studies and so on, especially if we get to where like kids who grow up in church are ready, they're ready for Dawa, they're ready to go Islamic dilemma, That was so cooked. It's already cooked, but we can always accelerate the process. And then we have, I've been here for 6 seconds, and I know it's the Jews. Nice. All right, man. We anything else, guys, before we jump into this? Guest looks Swedish or Finnish. Speaking of, guest looks Swedish or Finnish. Speaking of Thor,
I think I'm mostly Irish and German, but
ja,
Kommen Sie hier bitte.
Du hast recht. Möchtest du ins Kino gehen?
My German teacher used to yell, super sexy, whenever we got something right.
Yeah, mine just said sehr gut. It was funny because when I when I took German, I would always speak in this like ridiculously exaggerated accent. I would go, "Ja, möchtest du ins Kino gehen?" And my teachers would always tell me to stop, but I just wouldn't. It's like, what are you going to do? No, this is how I talk. That's how I talk when I'm doing German. Fun stuff, man. Fun stuff. Let's see. Love you so, D. Wood. Momo likely plagiarized from every religion he could find, which makes his use of Gnostic errors hilarious. Yeah, it's at the end of the day, it's Muhammad basically took everything around him in 7th century Arabia and rolled it up into a big ball, and that's Islam. But we could see all along that he took the Jews as some sort of special authorities, and then the Christians as well, but kind of more so the Jews on lots of issues. And so, not surprising that if he thinks these are the champions of monotheism, and he's in line with their prophets, that he would copy a bunch of their stories. So, yep, worked out, and now we can spot it all these years later. Wouldn't it be amazing to discover that the story of Al-Zut was the only authentic story? That would be funny. Hey, yeah, hey, that would be funny. You say you announced that you've finished this big project. You've traced everything in the Quran and the Hadith back to what it could be plagiarized from. And then you've got everything that's left. And yeah, the only things left are like the Al-Zut story, and that'd be pretty nice. That'd be cool. All right, man, we're ready, man. What do you got for us? So, hey, for anyone who missed the last one, we went through a bunch of stuff in a previous live stream, and he went through Chris went through a few hours of material. And then we said we'd come back for a part 2 because he had more. So here we are, guys. Here we are. All right, man.
All right.
You want me to share your screen?
Yeah.
All right. Here we go.
Cool. So
hey, you already did the Talmudic dilemma, man.
Yeah. I mean, it's all, this whole thing is the Talmudic dilemma. Like all the plagiarism is part of it. Again, full document, and this is actually permanent QR codes this time. So last time I'd had temporary ones, and that was a mistake. Those are permanent. This is the syllogism that I went over last time, if anyone's curious, and this is the conclusion I draw. And the big takeaway of this is that it's not just the Quran is copying information from previous sources, it's copying false, man-made, and contradictory information as if it is the word of God.
Yeah,
and the key takeaways.
Real quick, just for people who weren't here the first time, why don't you explain the significance of that? Why is that relevant?
Yeah,
that it's not just that the Quran is saying the same thing, but it's that it's copying false stories that we know are false.
That is the big takeaway, because if it is God being divine dictation, why is God imparting fake and false information as if it is true? Unless he's just deliberately a liar or evil. That's its own thing. But the whole conclusion here is it contradicts Islam's own understanding of what revelation is. If you say that the Talmud is inspired information, this goes against the doctrine of the Fatra, where there was a period of time between Isa and Muhammad where no prophets were given. It goes against the idea of the Jews being misguided and their texts being corrupted. In order to affirm that the Talmud is scripture, because the Quran is quoting it, you have to basically say that every single apologetic you have against the Islamic dilemma is false, which would then just make the Islamic dilemma true. and you essentially end up with a Talmudic dilemma where it's basically just the Islamic dilemma, but the Quran is contradicting Talmudic things as well as biblical things. So you still get this massive problem where the Quran is copying stuff that can't be scripture, yet it deliberately and explicitly calls it scripture multiple times. Thus, Islam is false.
Sounds like it's false.
Right. The key takeaways and the key claims of the dilemma, because I don't think most Muslims are getting the problem. I've actually gotten like almost every Muslim who's responded to any of the videos, because I've put out like 6 videos on the topic so far. Most of them just are affirming the Talmud as scripture, which I don't think they understand is how big of a problem that really is going to be. But they're just like blanket statement affirming everything that affirms the Quran. I'm like, okay, well that's circular reasoning, but doesn't, whatever. So the big takeaway is the author of the Quran thought the Talmud was the Torah. We can show this in a bunch of different ways, but every single story that it quotes from the Old Testament over 1,000 times. And yet, every single quotation it does is wrong, but most of them line up with the rabbinic quotations, the rabbinic understandings, the Aggidic material, the embellishments of the biblical stories. What the Quran is copying from is the embellishments, the fan fiction of the Bible. Not the Bible itself, but it thinks it is.
Hang on. So just thinking about dawah right now. When they respond to the Islamic dilemma, one of the things that we hear quite frequently is that the Quran is consciously correcting the previous scriptures. And what they'll say is, hey, here's the story as it is in the Old Testament. Here's the story in the Quran. You see, the version in the Quran is different. And so the Quran is deliberately, even though it never once says it, but the Quran is deliberately correcting the story as it is in the Old Testament. And so you would say that actually, if you take a look at the story and you compare it not with the version in the Torah, but in the embellished versions in the Talmud, you actually start getting the Quran. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Beast.
Which is the big problem for Islam, is that it can't just be a blanket statement correction, because it's not correcting anything. It's just copying things as they are. And the wording is sometimes different, but sometimes the wording is exactly the same. It's just a paraphrase. So it's not like identical word for word, but it's content for content the same. So it's not like it's correcting the content. It's just a translation from Hebrew to Arabic. But much of the Arabic is inspired and they're cognates by the Hebrew. But these are not just general Hebrew. It's not like the difference between yom and yom. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about like theological terms that are not common parlance are being copied from the Hebrew to the Arabic inside of the Quran. And these are also terms that are primarily used in the rabbis' writings, but are not used in the biblical Hebrew. Like Ar-Rahman. Ar-Rahman, like Allah's biggest name, the merciful one, or the bestower of mercy, that comes from the Talmud. That is what God is called. He has 3 attributes of mercy. And so you get some of semblance of like the 99 names, that idea you can find in the rabbinic writings. So you have the content all over the place is just so similar. The wording is similar. They borrow a lot of language. There's a lot of loan words from the theological systems of the rabbis, and the rabbinic jurisprudence, how Sharia is laid out, is identical, including the number of divisions within it, the 4 divisions. It's identical to the rabbinic version. So you have most of the theology, most of the jurisprudence, most of the stories, most of the biblical narratives, all of that is rabbinic. So, big problem.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So, if you affirm the rabbis in the Talmud, you're undermining the claims of the Quran, because they say that the rabbis were explicitly misguided at that time period. So you're basically saying that those who are misguided are retaining wahi. That doesn't make any sense Islamically, so you're just undermining your own theology. And this whole problem just shows that the Quran is man-made, as it gets not only science wrong and history wrong, it also gets the stories wrong. And there's times where it misquotes both the Bible and the rabbinic versions of things. And then every argument against it is circular reasoning. I affirm the Talmud because it affirms the Quran is not actually an argument, guys. That is circular reasoning. You have to show before the Quran what is true, and then show that the Quran lines up with it. The Quran can't be your standard for truth and be your measuring stick. That's circular. That's an unfalsifiable claim. That's not how we do arguments.
Pretty much, I have to say, pretty much all the Dawa responses to the Islamic dilemma ultimately end up being circular. Like they assume that the Quran is not committing this huge blunder of affirming the inspiration, preservation, authority of scriptures that it contradicts, and therefore it has to be something else. And anything they make up has to be correct. Why? Because, well, otherwise the Quran would be wrong. And that's just, they're ruling that out from the beginning. They're assuming that the Quran is correct from the beginning, and that's just sloppy methodology, guys. If you're debating,
if we were to do that with the Bible, they would be all over us with it. But they don't.
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind, we could always do that, right? Like any objection they raise against the Bible or anything they say about the Bible, we just go, nope. We're assuming that the Bible is the inspired, preserved, authoritative Word of God, and therefore, your objection must be false. Your objection must be wrong. And we can say anything we want, anything, we can make up anything. And whatever we make up must be correct because we're assuming that it's correct from the beginning.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. So the first one we're going to jump into is sleep being death. This idea that the sleep, you partially die or your soul leaves your body whenever you die.
Hey, everyone! This is actually relevant because mutawafika, that's Allah removing the soul. That's what happens when you go to sleep, and it's what happens when you die. If Allah returns your soul to you during the night, then you wake up and you were just sleeping. If He doesn't return it, then you're dead. And it's interesting because Surah 3, verse 55 talks about use the word mutawafika to say that, like in translation, and keep in mind there are translations that are accurate, and actually, it says he died, but they usually try to go with the standard Muslim belief, and they'll just say, and Allah took him to Himself or something like that. But yeah, it's actually took his soul away. And it's funny because even though it doesn't say anything about Jesus being asleep there, if you go to the commentary of Ibn Kathir, he'll say, and people were coming to get Jesus, and so Allah put him to sleep and then raised him up. And it's like, why? It's like, okay, because the word either means you go to sleep or you die, right? It can't be died, and therefore it must be Allah caused Jesus to take a quick nap. It's like this is what you guys have to do. But this is interesting. This is the first time hearing of this. So you're saying this actually comes from the Talmud.
It comes from many places in the Talmud. I only have 2 on screen right now. I'm going to show like 3 or 4 other ones. This concept of sleep being death, in the next one, which we'll get to in a minute, is ubiquitous. It is a very, very common idea. So most of the ideas of sleep and dreams in Islam come from the rabbis. In Bereshit Rabbah, I don't know why that got messed up there.
Borscht.
Yeah,
borscht. You were thinking about big old bowl of borscht.
The Lord God cast a deep slumber. The beginning of downfall is sleep. When a person sleeps, he does not toil in Torah and does not do any work. Because this gets back into the theology that you have to do good works in order to be entered into the garden. You have to have your good works have to outweigh your bad works on Judgment Day in order to be saved. And then you have the 2 angels on your shoulders writing all the things down, and then it gets recorded in your book, and then that's what's weighed on Judgment Day. And that's how the rabbis describe judgment. That's how Islam describes judgment. So judgment is identical. But you also have, save me from evil mishap and evil diseases, enlighten my eyes in the morning, lest I sleep in the sleep of death, never to awaken. I actually left out a lot of text in this section. If you want to read this section for the audience yourself, there's a lot more text that is relevant to sleep being death. And there's this whole prayer here that I cut out about God, please guard me in my soul from departing from my body. It's pretty cool. But, I didn't too much text to fit on the screen. So when one awakens, he recites, my God, the soul you have placed within me is pure. You formed it within me. You breathed it into me, and you guard it while it is within me. One day you take it from me and restore it within me in the time to come. As long as the soul is within me, I thank you, O Lord, my God, and God of my ancestors, master of all worlds, Lord of all souls. Blessed are you, O Lord, who restores souls to lifeless bodies. That is both an allusion to resurrection and Judgment Day, because that's a heavy focus inside of the Talmud. And it's also here teaching that the soul comes out at night and then goes back in. And we're going to get more explicit statements in a couple slides on sleep being death, because it literally says sleep is a form of death explicitly inside of the Talmud. In Surah 39, we also get that he guides the soul back into the body, and whenever you sleep, that the souls are taken. God takes to himself souls at the time of their death, and those to which do not die in their sleep, he holds back on those who he has decreed death and sends others back till their appointed time. So again, you get this idea that every night the soul leaves your body and it wanders around the earth. And then in the morning, God either chooses to withhold it from your body and you die permanently, or he allows you to go back into it. That's a deeply Jewish idea. And then we also get dream being prophecy. So, Rav said, there are 3 slumbers, the slumber of sleep, the slumber of prophecy, and the slumber of a trance. The idea of sleep being dreams is very Islamic. We get in Surah 45, and we did bring the children of Israel the book and judgment and prophecy, and we provided them with good things and preferred them above the worlds. He brought them prophecy in Surah Bukhari 70:17. Allah's messenger said, when the day of resurrection approaches, the dreams of a believer will hardly fail to come true, and a dream of a believer is 1/46th parts of prophetism, and whatever belongs to prophetism can never be false. This is a very common Islamic belief that God can speak to you in your dreams. Well, this whole idea of dream speak, of God directly communicating to you in your dreams, comes from the Jews. Rabbi Hanan bar Yitzchak said, there are 3 microcosms. Sleep is a microcosm of death. So again, sleep being death. The dream is a microcosm of prophecy, and Shabbat is a microcosm of the world to come. This is the Garden of Eden, which we'll see in a little bit, but we have rest being a microcosm of the world to come. Rabbi Evan adds another 2. The orb of the sun is a microcosm of the supernaural light. Torah is a microcosm of the supernaural wisdom. So we have Torah as well being lifted up to this idea of God's wisdom, God's word that's divinely dictated. That's not part of this current presentation, but the idea of divine dictation in the Torah pre-existing creation, and the Torah being used to create, is also rabbinic, and that is also Islamic. So the Gemara elaborates, our fire is 1/60th the fire of Gehenna, honey the 1/60th of manna, Shabbat the 1/60th of the world to come, sleep is 1/60th of death, and dream is 1/60th of prophecy. Now, if you notice, I'm quoting from different sections for these. Oh, that one's the same. I don't know. This is something that pops up all over the place, where we have not only, this one, it says a dream is broken up into 46 parts, and here we have 1/60th of prophecy. So it's interesting that there's even like a numeric section to both of them. But we have a dream is 1/60th. It's a microcosm of prophecy. We get this explicitly stated within the rabbinic sources. So you get both death and sleep and the prophecy all coming from Jews. This gets back into the Garden of Eden and the Islamic views and the rabbinic views on the Garden of Eden. So,
1 second, pause there. Do have
Yep.
I'm gonna jump out real quick. Have a couple of funny comments, but also an important question for you. So I'll just zoom through these real quick. Wait a minute. Are there a bunch of them? Hang on. On a serious note, I've never understood how Muslims can explain the plain fact of Gnostic stories in the Quran, like cut and dry, that's fake, dog. Yeah, that's how it would seem to everyone. I mean, when you read a story and you know, hey, this does not come from the first century. This is a later Gnostic source, and then you find it in the Quran. Their assumption is, well, the Gnostic source got it right. Why? Because it's in the Quran, so it must have been right. And it's like, okay, you're being circular. Every time
It's
someone
also
says,
ignoring the fact that the Gnostic sources call Jesus God.
every time someone says something gay, I must keep saying pause till they say no al zut. Islam, hey, can I copy your homework? Judaism, sure, just don't make it too obvious. That's a good one to use for a video. If the men of al zut gave Muhammad the strength of 30 men, then why didn't Muhammad al zut the al zut and give each of them the strength of 30 men, and then have them al zut him again to gain the strength of 900 men? I don't think he was that good at math. So, yeah,
it's like a genie asking for too many wishes, man.
Yeah.
There's only so much power.
Allah copied his homework from the Jews. That's another good line to bring up in a video. Viking from Norway here. Yep, me too. Well, not me. My grandma was Norwegian. Viking from Norway here. Ex-Muslim, by the way. Valhalla and Muslim afterlife is very alike. Here in Norway, they use that as a plus. Please contact me to make a plan here in the north. We need it. Hey, that would actually be like Chris here is finding parallels between the Quran and the Talmud, and the Quran plagiarizing those. Might be interesting to draw parallels between Valhalla and Islam. I don't know how you'd be able to make a connection. I know that Vikings were actually, like, they had interactions and stuff, but I think that was later.
I think Vikings existed post-state Muhammad. I mean, they were like the 700s or 800s to the 1400s, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who it was. You had gosh, who was it? I don't want to say it and be wrong, but it's one of the other groups that were nearby, like the Zoroastrians or something like that. But one of the nearby groups actually had teachings about, like, houris in paradise and stuff like that. But that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yep. It was a long time
Hindus
ago.
have a little bit of it as well, but Zoroastrians have a lot in common with their cosmology.
Contact Isaac Paley, Talmudic scholar, history and content, that's done interviews on a few YouTube channels, including Disciple Dojo. I will check that out. Would be good to get to the bottom of this whole Talmud thing. The Talmud is the cumulative work of hundreds of sages over several centuries, not a book by a single author. Well, according to the Groypers and the Dawa guys, it's just a bunch of commands from God that apply to all Jews, and all Jews know them. In before Dawa tries to counter Talmudic dilemma with, Jesus is a Jew. Oh, they'd say Jesus is a Muslim. Chris, tell me if I'm wrong. Oh, this is the question I wanted to get to. Chris, tell me if I'm wrong, but don't Jews agree that the Talmud quotations here aren't the literal word of God, yet the Quran puts them in Allah's mouth? Am I wrong, or did Islam just get this wrong?
Depends what you mean by the Talmud. Mishnah, people would debate about, I think. Depends on what sect of Orthodox Judaism you're talking about, whether, like, what their view of the Mishnah is in general. But the Mishnah is the oral Torah. It's the tradition passed down from Moses through the Great Assembly down to the rabbis of the temple destruction period, so around 70 to 120 AD. A lot of Jews would interpret that possibly as being authentic from God, passed down through Moses. But the rabbinic commentary is not the word of God. They do not believe it's divinely dictated. They don't believe it's divinely inspired. Some of them make snide comments about, like, how a ministering angel or a demon told them something, and they take that as a little bit more proof of its authenticity. But again, it's still rabbinic debate primarily on the Mishnah. So the Gemara is just rabbinic debate, commentary explaining both the Torah and the oral Torah. And then the Midrash's commentary mostly on the Torah.
Hey, how far
Islam
you,
for sure gets it wrong.
how far you want to go with this, man? Do you want to be like the guy on this particular topic forever?
I don't know.
I'm
I've
just
only
saying,
been doing it
is
for
this
3 months.
I'm just saying, is this like a 2025 project or is this like a lifelong project?
It's for sure going to stretch into 2026 and 2027. Past that, I'm not sure. Like once I have gone through all of the material, I'm going to be pretty settled. So I might like do presentations on it, but the research itself would be mostly finished. Like once we get all of the Quran cataloged, it's pretty hard to get past that point.
You might want to like go to school and become like a Talmud scholar. That'd be cool. That'd be cool. Christian Talmud scholar for purposes of like,
Destroying Islam.
yeah, like showing where the Quran's getting
yeah.
all this stuff. That'd be fun. That'd be fun stuff. I did want to go back, but I just saw a funny debate update, so I want to get down to this real quick. It's funny how Muslims claim we corrupted the Gospel Torah, yet they can't show us the uncorrupted version that they claim we have. Yeah, the more precisely, the uncorrupted version that Allah claims we have, and that Muhammad claims we have, and then Muslims tell us, "No, you don't even have it." Ha ha, losers. D Wizzle, why do you run from the powerful dawah? Because it's too powerful. What do you want me to do? You gotta know. You gotta pick your fights. Okay, here we go. Saw short of the Andrew debate. It was Andrew saying, "Stop banging your family," and Hakikachu saying, "But Jews and AI," and Andrew saying, "Stop banging your family," and Daniel, "But Jews." Yeah, this sounds like it's gonna be classic. Yeah, guys, we will be reviewing the best debates from DebateCon. Talmud says Persians are hairy. See prophecy. Yeah, whoa, Persians are hairy. How could the Talmud have known that?
Everyone should go sub to Ezragate, by the way. It's a pretty cool channel.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about that yet. I want to talk to him first so we can kind of coordinate whatever he's trying to do. I want a T-shirt, Men from Al-Zut and Muhammad. Yeah, we do need, keep forgetting, but we do need some Zut merch. This is, matter of fact, guys, remind me like in December. I'm gonna find someone who, one, matter of fact, we'll just have to brainstorm. We'll assign it as a project at the end of a live stream and say, okay, everyone brainstorm ideas for Zut merch. Just starting with the T-shirt, something funny for T-shirts, and then like a week later during a live stream, people can share their ideas, and we'll take the best ideas and turn them into some Zut merch. That'd be powerful.
You could have a Diddy line going around the butt on the back, and then a train on the front that has the smoke saying "Zoot Zoot."
I like how you think, Chris. I like how you think. That is indeed a good idea. All aboard the Zoot train. What is the standard rabbinic position on why? Here you go. What is the standard rabbinic position on why Jesus is rejected as the Messiah? Keep in mind, you speak for every Jew on planet Earth, Chris.
That is such a complicated topic.
Yeah, do you know this? Because I don't know if you've just been focusing on parallels or if you're studying all this stuff in the Talmud.
So I made a video on Isaiah 53 rebutting some of the rabbinic positions. I focused on Tavia Singer for that a little bit. On specifically just Isaiah 53, but they go through lots of different passages. Isaiah 53 is one of the favorites because they love to show that it's actually Israel and not Jesus. That doesn't work for the express reason that the Targums say that it is the Messiah explicitly in Isaiah 41 and 42 and 52 and 53. The word Messiah is added to the Aramaic in those sections. But beyond that, a lot of the rabbis just refuse to accept Jesus as the Messiah because he didn't fulfill what they view as the primary prophecies of the Messiah, being the conquering king passages. So they reject the notion of double comings, even though we do have the Messiah coming in two different ways in the Bible, on a donkey and in the clouds. They say that if we are worthy, he'll come in the clouds. If we're not worthy, he'll come on a donkey. How they still don't see that with Jesus is beyond me. But they have this notion that, hey, you can't have Jesus being the actual Messiah because he didn't fulfill the prophecies. He didn't actually do the things that he was supposed to do as the Messiah. We see this with Rashi a lot, but Rashi even admits that the sages used to teach that Isaiah 53 was about the Messiah. But after his admission that the sages used to teach that, they're like, oh, but we know it can't be Jesus. And then he gives like 15 reasons why it can't be Jesus. And his main reason is he's just not fulfilling the prophecies. So if you look at most of the rabbinic, like the modern debates between rabbis and basically the counter-missionary side for the Jews and the apologist side for the Christians, if you look at those debates, it almost always comes down to messianic prophecy. That is the primary thing that they always debate. It's not anything about his life, his lifestyle, whether or not he was. That's not usually the topics that are at hand. It's almost always the messianic prophecy, because if a Christian can prove that the messianic prophecy is legitimate prophecy about the Messiah and that Jesus did it historically, then you can show that Christianity is true. If the Jew can prove the opposite, then they can prove Christianity is false. So that is the primary sticking point a lot of the time, but they do have reasons beyond that. And that being said, there is a divine Messiah in the Talmud. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, and that's normally what I see in debates. It's debates about the prophecies and so on. And it's actually cool when you get like a Messianic Jew and a Jewish rabbi. They go way deep. I don't mean in the Zut sense, but they go way deeper than like, just a regular Christian quoting Isaiah 53 or something like that. Here we got. This is definitely a good one to keep in mind. For a T-shirt, Muhammad got zooted, and all I got was this lousy T-shirt. That's a good one. Let's see. Think two more. Raymond Ibrahim, Sword and Scimitar, and probably Andrew Bostom, The Legacy of Jihad, mention Islamic Viking slave trade along 8th to 10th centuries probably might have exchanged stories and mythologies. Yeah, that wouldn't be surprising.
And you do get some syncretism with them later on with Christians, because the whole notion of Ragnarok is from the Christian god conquering their gods. So you do have syncretism from the Vikings with other religions. I would not be surprised if Islam is just another one of them.
So is the plagiarism mostly from Mishnah or Gemara?
Gemara. Primarily. It's Gemara and Midrash. So he's not even quoting the oral Torah most of the time. He's quoting the rabbis, the rabbis' debates.
And here we have Groiper. So you're saying the Jews created Islam? That is what you'd hear from the Groipers on this. All right, man, ready to go back in?
Yeah.
All right.
So this one's fun. All right, Garden of Eden. All over the Talmud, we get that Gehenna is hell, and the Garden of Eden is heaven, or just referred to as paradise. So in Ivrin 19a 5 through 10, I again left out a lot of material. You can go back and read it. It's a pretty interesting passage. But say before him, Master of the Universe, you have judged. Again, this is a Islamic term for Master of the Universe. You have judged properly. You have acquitted properly. You have condemned properly, and is befitting that you have prepared Gehenna for the wicked and the Garden of Eden for the righteous. So too, it is reasonable to say this with regard to the sinners of the Jewish people: the fire of Gehenna has no power over them. This gets into the idea that the Jews believe that all Jews will be saved. If as long as you're a Jew, God will tilt the scales in your favor in some way, and you will be saved from the fire, even if you're only in the fire for 12 months. So Resh Lakesh said if it is in Israel, this is the entrance to Gehenna. If it's in Arabia, its entrance is Bet Garem. This place is in Jerusalem. I have no idea what it's talking about in Arabia, but it's interesting that there's a thing in Arabia. Arabs in Arabia is brought up a lot in the Talmud, which is interesting. So it makes me wonder. I haven't done the deep dive into why Muhammad thought he was a prophet yet, but it makes me wonder if he saw all of the stuff about Arabs and Gentile prophets, because there's a passage about the 7 Gentile prophets where Job is included as a prophet in that, which he's not at all a prophet in the Bible. You have Job included there, and you have Balaam as the prophet unto Moses, although they're using it in a polemical sense, showing that Balaam is evil while Moses is good. They're kind of like doing a sort of typology or comparison between Balaam and Moses. But if you get this idea of a Gentile prophet that is to come from Arabia, you might be able to loosey-goose it from the Talmudic and Midrashic material. I have not done that deep dive yet, but if anyone wants to, that'd be a pretty cool study to do. In Shabbat 33b7, we have, they said, the judgment of the wicked in Gehenna lasts for only 12 months. So this actually comes up in Rosh Hashanah 17b, I think, as well, with the judgment of the wicked only being 12 months in Gehenna. They have more of a purgatory view of Gehenna, where the people who don't deny the resurrection will just be suffering for a year, and then they'll be released to the garden, where those who reject the resurrection of the dead and they sin with their bodies, they will be either suffering forever or they will be annihilated. So you have a Jewish view of possibly annihilation for like the Sadducees and those who denied the resurrection and the Epicureans. And you have that everyone else is just going to be in it for a set period of time. Well, in Surah 2, it says, and they say, the context here is Jews, that the fire will not touch us except for a certain number of days. Why does the Quran say this? It's because in the Talmudic sources, we have the Jews actually saying this. So the Jews say the fire will not touch us except for a number of days, being 12 months. Say, have you received a covenant from Allah? Indeed, Allah will not break his covenant. Or you're talking about something you do not know. No, but whoever has done evil and has sin surrounds him. Such people are rightful companions of the fire. They will remain in it. And those who believe and do good works, such people are the rightful companions of the garden, and they will remain in it. Now, obviously, there are not hundreds, but like dozens of verses in the Quran that mention the Garden of Eden and being companions of paradise in the life of the hereafter, in the world to come. All those phrases are ubiquitous all throughout the Quran, and it's also pretty common in the Jewish sources.
It's a little,
another example for both.
It's interesting because when it says that, you know, they'll only spend 12 months there, and then the Quran responds, and they say it's only a certain number of days, wouldn't have a problem with that part because this would be the Quran responding to what people are saying. It's interesting though, because it's showing that Muhammad is indisputably hearing a lot of stuff from Jews and then interacting with it.
Right. And these are Jews that are rabbinic specifically, not just biblical, because this is not a biblical idea. This is a novelty in post-temple period in the diaspora. So why is Allah quoting and talking about the conversations what the Jews are having that are after the time of the revelation? Now you could say, oh, he's correcting them here. Like, hey, they say that this is only going to happen. But we can see that the author of the Quran knows about the Talmud. He knows about the material. And in another place, he calls it scripture. So, fun stuff. You also have this is a minor tractate. And it talks about, again, the bold-faced are for Jahannam, and the shame-faced are for the Garden of Eden. And again, in Surah 19 and Surah 2, we also have that you will enter the Garden of Eden. Now, Surah 2 is interesting, not for, it is for this section, but it didn't actually color correctly. So when we said, O Adam, live in the garden, you and your wife, and eat freely from whatever you wish, but do not come near this tree, or you will both become wrongdoers. But Satan caused them to turn away from there and got them out of the state they were in. And we said, go down, one of you an enemy to the other. There will be for you on earth a place to live and provision for a while. Then Adam received words from his Lord, and he forgave him. Indeed, he is forgiving the merciful. We said, go down, all of you, from here, and indeed there is coming to you some guidance from me, and whoever follows my guidance, no fear will come upon them, nor will they grieve. Well, twice it says for them to go down. And there's this idea in Islamic writings that the Garden of Eden was originally in heaven. It was not on earth. Mm-hmm. That is a problem whenever you look at it biblically, because in the Bible, it's on earth.
Yeah,
we actually get the rivers flowing out.
That could be one of many things we point out for the Islamic dilemma, because lots of times Christians are interested in what the Quran is saying about the gospel, and that the Quran is affirming the gospel, and yet we show that the Quran doesn't line up with the gospel in various ways. And so, but when it comes to the Old Testament, Christians are, Christians just focus more on the New Testament than they do on the Old Testament. But this would be one of the things you could that would be easy to point out, that the Quran is actually contradicting the Torah. But you're saying that this is actually found in the Talmud here?
Uh-huh. The Garden of Eden is in heaven in the Midrash. So, we're going to get to it in a little bit. But we have explicitly in Second Enoch that it is in heaven and also has 4 rivers, and the rivers are made out of the same stuff. We'll get to that in a second. But yes, the idea that the Garden of Eden was originally in heaven and that they were kicked out of it and sent to earth, you can get from the rabbis. So the Quran contradicts the real Bible, but it affirms the fake Bible, the embellished Bible, the rabbinic Bible. So again, it's affirming something that is not scripture, but it thinks it's scripture. So it's misidentifying what actual Torah is.
Hey, you know, to be a good meme here, that like you could make it your thumbnail. Remember that you seen that meme where a guy's walking with his girlfriend, but he turns around and he's checking out some other girl?
Oh yeah.
And then people will use that to say like, "Oh, you're originally, you know, with this position, but then you're checking out something else." But you could have the guy he's walking and the girl he's walking with is the Torah, but he's checking out the Talmud. the girl he's checking out the Talmud.
Just the Quran, yeah.
Yeah. I should have used that for this one.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so in Berachot 16b, we get, if one does so, recites Shema and praise, the verse says about him, as with fat and marrow my soul will be satisfied, and not only does he receive this reward, but he inherits 2 worlds, this world and the world to come. This language, again, of the world to come is all over the Talmud. May it be your will to dwell in our love, love and brotherhood, peace and friendship, and may you make our borders rich in disciples and cause us to ultimately succeed, that we will have a good end and hope. I cut out the bulk of his prayer, but this is a very lengthy prayer. And may you set our portion in the Garden of Eden, and may you establish for us a good companion and a good inclination in your world, and we may rise early and find the aspiration of our hearts to fear your name. May the satisfaction of our souls come before you. May you hear our prayers. So he has a good companion in the Garden of Eden. And the Garden of Eden is the world to come. It's a part of the world to come. And in Surah 3:14-17, we get again that this is the provision of the life of this world, but God with him is the best resort. Say, but shall we tell you of a better thing than this? For those who fear are gardens with their Lord, beneath which rivers flow, they shall dwell therein for and pure wives and graces from God. Lord looks on his servants who say, the Lord we believe, King James in English. Lord, we believe, pardon thou our sins and keep us from the torment of the fire, the patient, the truthful, the devout, and those who ask for pardon at the dawn. So we get, again, people praying for salvation, praying to keep them in this hope. And this prayer is also in the rabbinic sources that talk about the Garden of Eden being given as a reward, and it includes the pure wives, and we get a good companion. So we get all of that kind of together, but we also get into the idea of having intercourse in the Garden of Eden. So in Berachot 57b, 10-14, we get 3 matters do not enter the body, yet the body benefits from them, and they are washing, anointing, and usage. And this is sex. It's euthanism. 3 matters are microcosms of the world to come. They are Shabbat, the sun, and usage. So you will have rest, you will have the sun, you will have peace, you will have plenty, you will have like kind of the idea is like bathing in the sunlight on the beach type mentality, or like reclining in chairs, you know, from the Quran. And usage. The Gemara asks, usage of what benefits the body is a microcosm of the world to come. If you say that it refers to sex, doesn't that weaken the body? Rather, it refers to usage of his orifices, i.e. relieving oneself. Now, this is interesting because in another rabbinic passage, it talks about how conjugal relations where you entirely like dump your load benefits the body, But if you only partially empty your load, it weakens the body. So it's like if you have really good sex, you benefit the body. If you have really bad sex, you hurt the body. So it's interesting that it talks about usage being a part of the world to come. And then one rabbi says that it is pooping, and the other rabbi like infers that it is intercourse. So you still have that. Then three matters ease one mind. They are the voice, sight, and smell, with smell and voice being two of Muhammad's favorite things. When they are pleasant and aesthetic, three matters give a person comfort. They are a beautiful abode, the Garden of Eden, a beautiful wife, a hoary, and beautiful vessels. A penis that doesn't wane type idea. So you have the idea of this paradise, this 72 virgin type paradise there. And then obviously in Islam, you get the Gilmans, the little pearl boys that you may or may not have intercourse with, and you get the Horis. So that seemed like the little boys are not Talmudic. They do not condone sodomy in general, and they also do not condone boy love. It's very original. It's one of the original things in Islam is the boy love. Although it mostly comes from the pagans, yeah.
Yeah, so our list of things that are that Muhammad didn't steal from the previous sources, we've got the Muhammad and Al-Zut story and the little boys.
Yeah. So to supplement the idea that intercourse does happen in the Garden of Eden, I'm going to go through these different stories. These don't have direct parallels. Well, this one does have a direct parallel with the Quran. I'm going to go through these stories and be like, okay, this is what they're actually thinking about. This is how they're talking about the Garden of Eden and what's happening inside of it. So in Yevamot 3063a5, Rabbi Eliezer said, what is the meaning of that which is written? This is now bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh. This teaches that Adam had intercourse with each animal and beast in search for his mate, and his mind was not at ease in accordance with the verse, and for Adam there was not found a helpmate for him until he had intercourse with Eve. So the Talmud says that he went out and got some monkey cheeks.
Yeah. See, this is what I mean when I say there is creepy stuff in there. Like, hey, Groypers, why you need to completely misrepresent stuff and just lie about it and use your dumb memes when you can just point out this weird thing.
There's so many more weird things about it. Like, you can point out the discussion about having intercourse with a 3-year-old and if it breaks the hymen or not, and if they're still a virgin. Now, granted, again, the Talmud does not condone child marriage or child intercourse, but there is a very lengthy passage about a 3-year-old and having intercourse. If you want to bring up weird, creepy stuff in the Talmud, it's all over the place. You don't have to lie about it. Now, again, you still have to take it out of context, but the Talmud is not I don't endorse the Talmud, largely speaking. There are some things I'm like, yeah, that's a really good idea, or that's good wisdom. There's also things I'm like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever read. I feel dumber after reading Piscayim 111a, or really Piscayim 109b through 112a. That whole section is brain-numbingly stupid. I showed it to someone today, and he said, this sounds like The Onion wrote it. And I have some of it in the presentation, but...
you're starting to sound a little bit like Nick Fuentes here, buddy. And I'm saying, over this one, I feel dumber after reading this, guys.
No, I'll show some of it. People will be able to judge for themselves. But again, so he's clapping monkey cheeks and apparently lizards and birds and whatnot. And I said this kind of offhanded thing on my stream about this whenever I was reading it the first time. There's technically some animals who have very similar anatomies to humans. So if it's just an animal, if it's just the orifice that he's enjoying, it's interesting that he still was not satisfied from this theology that he had intercourse with every animal and beast. Yeah.
Yeah, so then he had intercourse with Eve, and he was like, that's better.
Yeah, that's nice. Based. Then Genesis for about 18:6 says the serpent was cunning. The verse after this one should have said only, the Lord God made for Adam and his wife garments. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Korah said, "It is to inform you what misdeed prompted the evil one, the serpent, to assail them, is because it saw them engaging the way of nature in the open, and it lusted for her." So in Genesis Rabbah, the Midrash, the commentary, basically said that Adam and Eve were having intercourse out in the open. Satan saw it, and he lusted after her. And that's why he wanted her to eat the fruit, to sin, so that he could take her for his spouse. And we do get this idea of Samuel and Lilith, how he married the essentially succubus queen, which she develops into the succubus queen. The rabbinic Lilith is more just like the mom or the wife of Satan and the mom of the demons. But either way, we do get that Satan desired her and that they were having intercourse in paradise, in the Garden of Eden. And Rabbi Hanan bar Hanana said, daytime is 12 hours long, and the day Adam, the first man, was created, was divided as follows. In the first hour of the day, his dust was gathered. So again, you get the idea of, there's a surah that talks about the order of operations of Allah creating, and it's divided into 4 sections. And we get several times in the Talmud that there's divisions into sections of events that happen, and they explain the order of operations. So here we have the dust being gathered from all over the world, which is Islamic. And the second, under the undefined figure was fashioned, so like a clump. And the third, his limbs were extended, like the arms and legs being extended. So again, this is like he started from dust, he became a clot, his bones extended, and the flesh were formed around them. That Islamic idea of embryology, you might be able to point it to this, although it's way more closely related to the Greek physicians and how they described embryology. But if you want to say that he wasn't influenced by the Greeks and he actually just took it all from the rabbis, this would be one of your closest parallels for the embryology of the Quran. Although, again, the Greeks is a much better match. In the fourth, a soul was cast into him. In the fifth, he stood on his legs. In the sixth, he called the creatures by names. He gave them. In the seventh, and again, he gave them. So this is getting back into that story, but that story is way more explicit in a different passage. In the seventh, Eve was paired with him. In the eighth, they arose to the bed 2 and descended 4, i.e. Cain and Abel were immediately born. So they had intercourse.
Busiest 12 hours of all time.
Absolutely. You also have an entire pregnancy with twins and them being born immediately. So they had intercourse. So again,
I have to say, I would love to see a movie based on just this 12 hours. Just like these are the 12 hours. Like running around like super
rabbis
fast.
are very colorful. Yeah. You could have like the Flash version of creation where everything's just in slow motion. He's just running really fast.
And they have sex and she like instantly starts swelling up.
Yeah. Oh, that's so creepy sounding. Anyway, don't need to go into that. That's some people's fetishes. Anyway, so Enoch. And those men took from there, and they brought me up to the third heaven. So again, now he's in heaven. So the idea of the Garden of Eden being originally heaven, and like the paradise of Eden, it's directly stated that this is what it is all over the Jewish sources. So the idea that heaven was, or the Garden of Eden was in heaven and descended to earth, or the Garden of Eden was in heaven and they were kicked out of it and forced to live on earth because of their sin. Both of those you could get from the Jews. So no matter how the Islamic position tries to spin it, they're taking it from the rabbis, not from the Bible. But here is an interesting parallel with Second Enoch, which also predates Islam by several hundred years. And those men took from there, and they brought me up to the third heaven and sat me down there. And then I looked downward and I saw paradise. And that place is inconceivably pleasant, and it covers the whole of paradise. And has something of every orchid tree and every fruit. And in its root is the paradise at the exit that leads to the earth. So again, it's not in earth. It's in the either third heaven or the second heaven. It's either in heaven proper or the sky. And then it leads to earth whenever you leave. And paradise is in between the corruptible and incorruptible, and 2 streams come forth, one a source of honey and milk, and a source which produces oil and wine. So these are 4 rivers that are coming out of 2 streams. and is divided into 4 parts, and they go around with a quiet movement, and they come out into the paradise of Eden. This place, Enoch, has been prepared for the righteous. For them, this place has been prepared for an eternal inheritance. So again, this is not the Garden of Eden that Adam and Eve were placed in. This is the eternal inheritance, the life of the hereafter that Jews are promised, that have 4 rivers that have honey, milk, oil, and wine. Well, in Surah 47:15, we get a comparison of the garden, which those who keep their duty are promised the eternal inheritance. In it are rivers of fresh water, rivers of milk, which of their flavor does not change, rivers of wine that is delicious to the drinkers, and rivers of pure honey. There is every kind of fruit in it for them, with forgiveness from their Lord. Is this like those who live forever in the fire, or are given boiling water to drink, so that that tears their bowels? The only difference between these two is oil, like olive oil, for pure water, fresh water. Other than that, it's the same. And we know this predates Islam by hundreds of years. And it is not biblical, it's rabbinic. And the Jews don't consider it scripture.
But Muhammad did.
But Muhammad did. How do you get past this as a Muslim? Like, this level of plagiarism is insane. So, to wrap up the paradise section, you have like a general summary. You have the life of the hereafter promised for those who do not deny resurrection, who follow the Torah, who practice Shabbat, so the rest period, and who do the festivals. So those who do the Tishri stuff, which is a parallel to Ramadan, and it's a very close parallel to Ramadan. Their feast day, their fasting, is very similar to how the Muslims fast. So their fasting practices are very similar. Ramadan itself is set up a similar way to Tishri, with the holy month. And their judgment day happens by trumpet calls being done on Rosh Hashanah in the Quran and in the Talmud. The threat of a trumpet blast is threatening Rosh Hashanah. For the final Rosh Hashanah, in which Judgment Day happens thereafter, you're judged by the angels on your shoulders who are writing your good deeds and your bad deeds. It's weighed on the scales. Those scales are tipped in favor of balance for the Muslims and Jews. And then you are issued into eternal fire, which a lot of the punishments of the fire are identical to the rabbinic punishments of the fire, such as eating fruit of a tree. It's a different name for the tree, but you're still eating fruit from a tree that burns you on the inside. You're drinking boiling water. You're doing all these things. And then you also have paradise, where it has beautiful women, probably sex, or you can construe it as sex. And you have every type of fruit and the 4 rivers, and you're sunbathing, and it is a form of rest. So basically all of Islamic eschatology and judgment comes from the rabbis.
You hear that, Muslims?
Yeah.
1 second. There was a question. Jump out real quick. Take these real quick. My Islamophobia is plagiarizing from Jews and Gnostics. It's the best Islamophobia. It's your favorite maid, and I demand to know why AP isn't in this live. Lol. Also, sorry I'm nearly an hour late. Hi, Mr. Wood. Yeah, AP was debating today, so he's at DebateCon, hanging out with his buddies. Chris, your Jewish mind magic can't stand in the way of Satan's powerful da'wah. Just say that shahada. Good point. Momo was the little red caboose of the Zut train. Very Islamophobic. I can explain. Yeah, I can explain the Talmud to you. The 3-year-old thing was to show the abused girl was still legally a virgin, entitled to a virgin's bride gift.
Yes, it's actually a good thing whenever you understand the reason why the Jews are talking about it, which is oftentimes the case, including the cases with rape. It is a good thing. They're actually elevating women's rights in those passages.
Here's a question I wanted to answer. David, if you could get English translations of any Arabic books, what would they be? Ibn Abi Dawud's Kitab al-Masahif. That would be it.
Al-Qurtubi?
You have, I think you have,
Al-Qurtubi?
you've got a lot of
I
Qurtubi.
haven't been able to find one online.
What, Qurtubi? They've
Yeah.
got at least.
He's the one that includes Satan being a hermaphrodite and having genitals on his thighs, and they like clap and make eggs, right?
They've got. I'm looking. Okay, that's all coffee. They've got it. This is volume 8 right here, so they've got at least that much.
Oh, interesting.
For a while, all they had was volume 1, which was just Surah 1 and Surah 2, and then all of a sudden they came out with a bunch more. But yeah, so this is up through
I've
Surah
not been
10.
able to find it.
This is up through Surah 10. So you've got Qurtubi at least through Surah 10. I don't know if they have more than that.
Good to know. Okay.
And let's see. So yeah, Ibn Abi Dawud, Kitab al-Masahif. I've been volunteering to bankroll translators for years to get that. You know why, guys? You know that? You know why? Probably 2007, 2008, me and Nabil made a list of things that we wanted to get done that we thought were really important. Most of those things have been done. The thing I remember that we thought was really important that has never gotten done is getting... Oh, just so everyone knows, Ibn Abi Dawud's Kitab al-Masahif. So it's Ibn Abi Dawud. He's the son of the famous hadith collector Abu Dawud. But he compiled an entire book on differences in different Qurans. But he still knew of the differences between, like, Abdullah ibn Masud's. We don't have Abdullah ibn Masud's Quran anymore. We don't have Ubay ibn Ka'b's Quran anymore. He listed the differences, the textual variants and things like that between the different Qurans and so on. If you've heard that, which I bring up in discussions about back in the day on the perfect miraculous preservation of the Quran, but if you heard that Abdullah ibn Masud's Quran only had 111 chapters because he didn't think that Surah 1, Surah 113, or Surah 114 were supposed to be in the Quran because these are prayers. His view was the Quran is Allah talking to us. These are us speaking to Allah. So these are prayers, but they're not part of the Quran. That's in Kitab al-Masahif. And if you've ever heard Ubay ibn Ka'b had an additional 2 chapters and so on, then that's there as well. And Nabil was checking out. And I think he said there were over 200 textual variants between Ibn Masud's Quran and Zayd ibn Thabit's Quran, which is the Quran that's used now. Well, Qurans now are descended from that one, but 200 textual variants just in Surah 2, not the rest of the Quran, just in Surah 2. So anyway, I'd say it was more relevant. It was more relevant when we said we needed that and we needed it translated because people were still using the miraculous, perfect, dot for dot preservation of the Quran as an argument. So we're like, this would be really helpful having an entire book filled with Quran variants. But still super relevant just to show, I mean, going through there and just showing what a mess it was. These guys trying to figure out, I mean, they couldn't even agree on what's supposed to be in the Quran. And then they've got all these different Qurans. And then Uthman just, okay, we need to burn all this stuff. We need to burn all this stuff. And then centuries later, Muslims, it's a miracle, perfect preservation, dot for dot, letter for letter. It's like, oh my goodness, you guys just make stuff up. So yeah, that would be my number 1 pick. We do got, I have asked Jai and DOC if they want to take a crack at that. We'll see. Is that in your...
Speaking of them, they sent me a book that was on the quality of the Arabic. That's in Arabic, which is unfortunate for an English speaker. But it's talking about the poor quality of the Arabic. So it points out every passage of the Quran that is bad quality writing. I think that would also be really good to have translated.
That is.
Because they use that like, oh, it's the best Arabic ever.
Yeah, and that would be good. That would be good for videos as well. That'd be good for videos as well. Is that in your Bible, David? No, but some of it is in the Talmud. How do you like them apples? But it's not in the Bible, David. Yeah, maybe the Torah the Jews had that the Quran is affirming was actually the Talmud, and Muhammad just didn't know. When Chris finishes his research, can be helpful to have a website page that lists Quran verses and then hyperlinks to Talmud pages it is plagiarized from. Well, that's what you've got, right?
Yeah, it's the spreadsheet has that already.
Yeah, he's got that. That was and that was a little thing you. What is that? What's that QR code? Is that what it's called?
That is for the booklet and for the slides. That's not going to be a hyperlink, but it will have all the sources eventually. For the Excel sheet, we're gonna create a Quran translation from it within an updated Palmer, and do some revisions on how he translated some things, just going through the whole Quran. That is going to be finished around next year, but the content of the Quran itself, the text will be available to everyone for free. And we're going to have every single reference in the Quran linked to the passages of the rabbis and Gnostics and Zoroastrians and Greeks that he's copying from. So that's going to be, we're still workshopping the name, but I think the Rabbi's Quran is going to be the name of it.
That's a
but it's going to be open source for all Christian apologists to quote from, so you don't have to worry about copyright. And it's going to be updated English, so you don't have to read the King Jamesian Pickthall or Palmer. That's in the works. That'll be done probably around this time next year.
Beast. To all those asking for online Talmud Quran resources and not to overpromise, we will do this. We are currently working on all these things. This your buddy?
Right. Yeah, this is one of the guys working on it.
Doing some uni history reading. Apparently, Muslims raided into the Sus region of southern Morocco in 8th century. Maybe Zut migrated there. Yep, they had to go find the El Zut. All right, ready to jump back into this? Not in the Zut sense, but ready to jump back into this?
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Yeah. We're jumping into women and plowing them. So, kind of in the Zut sense. So, the 4 wives rule is not original. So, the Gemara clarifies in Yevamot 44a, 5, that the Gemara qualifies the Mishnah's case. No, it is necessary to teach that he has permission to consummate the Levirate marriage with all of his Yevamots, in the case where it is possible for him to provide for all 4 women. So this gets into the case that there is a cap for the number of wives you're able to have from Levirate marriage and just in general. The cap for kings is 18, but the cap for normal people is 4. And the reasoning for that is, but if there are any more than that, no, he should not, in order that he will be able to meet the conjugal rights of each woman at least once in each month. Since there's 4 weeks in a month, you can only have up to 4 wives, because you can only have intercourse with them for a week during their ovulation cycle, because that's what basically Judaism dictates, is you're not supposed to touch your wife for a week after they're finished their period, which then puts them in ovulation to get them to be the most likely to get pregnant. It just so happens to be that God orchestrated marriage practices and to make people the most likely to get pregnant. You know, get into a little bit of the scientific knowledge of God things. But that's biblical, and they use that biblical principle of when you are able to have intercourse to show that, hey, the most number of women you can have is 4, and it continues later on that you're only able to have all 4 of them if you are able to support them all financially.
Sounds familiar.
And through your intercourse. Sounds very, very familiar. In Surah 4:3, but if you fear that you will not deal fairly by the orphans, marry the women who seem good to you, 2, 3, or 4, and if you fear that you cannot do justice, then 1, or those who your right hand possesses. In this way, it is more likely that you will not do injustice. Now, this is in contradiction with later on in Surah 4, where it says that you cannot be fair to multiple wives. So there's the whole tension there of, well, it either, if you solve the tension, you're only able to have 1 wife and endless sex slaves, or there seems to be a contradiction inside the Quran within Surah 4 about the number of women you can marry. But the 4 women and the justification for the 4 women to be able to do justice between them, and it's interpreted often that is mostly through finances and equal shares in the bed. If you're not able to do that, then only have one wife. But if you're able to do that, if you're able to financially support them, you can have up to 4 wives. So this is something that is permitted by the rabbis. Their polygamous practices are nearly identical in much of the ways. So both of these systems are tying in the financial ability and sexual capacity to it, not merely sexual desire. Why? Again, like, this just shows a lot of the culture. It's not just theology, it's not just eschatology, it's not judgment, it's not just, it seems to be most things. Culture, the way you speak, the way you bless people, because even the blessings that Muslims do come from the Talmud. The way you dress, the way you walk, the way you talk, it all feels very Jewish. The deeper you look into it, the way you pray is Jewish. So this is just another thing within the marriage contracts that is related. You also have possible origins of muta. Now, it is worth noting, there's a caveat here, that it is way more likely he got his muta practices from the Persians, from the Babylonians in general, or from the Arab pagans. It was not very common in the Talmud, and some of these sages who say these type of things are like, hey, that was not actually something you should have done. But there is this passage here in 37b 5-7 that you could make a case for it being very muta sounding. So, therefore, a man should not marry a woman in this country and then go and marry another woman in a different country, lest a son from one marriage and a daughter from another unite with one another, and their child being a like abomination before God, because it's incest babies. Is that so? Is there really such a prohibition? Later on, it asks this question. And then it clarifies, since his wife did not accompany him to Dar Dishur, this is one of the rabbis who would practice this, he wished to be married to another woman while he was there in order to avoid a situation that could lead him to having forbidden thoughts. So in order to avoid having intercourse with a woman or a prostitute or whoever, he instead would go and say, which woman will be my wife for the day? It would appear from the fact that both sages married wives in 2 different places. This is 2 different guys who said this. They would go into town, they'd be like, hey, who wants to be my wife today? And then they would go in and they would spend the night with that woman. Now, it is clarified later on, there is an apologetic for this that says that, the sages are pious men and they're actually just doing this so that they don't feel tempted to have intercourse with women. And there's this common phrase of, a man who has bread in his basket doesn't get hungry, where the idea is if a man doesn't have bread, he's gonna want bread. But if he has bread if he has bread accessible to him, he can choose to take the bread or not choose to take the bread. And because he has a choice, he has a stronger will against taking the bread. And they apply this to sex. If the man is married, then it's going to be easier for him not to have intercourse with a random person. So they use the temporary marriages as an apologetic against pleasure marriages, but the way it is originally presented in the Talmud, because that explanation is longer, it's later into this passage in Yevmot. If you're just reading this section of the 2 sages saying this, and the Gemara accepts that it's fine because it says the Gemara rejects the proof, sages are different as their names are renowned, and therefore their children are always identified by their connection to their father. So it's not a problem that you're marrying women in different countries, because even if you get those women pregnant, your kids from the different women are going to be known because you're a celebrity. So if you're a celebrity, you can have temporary pleasure marriages because it doesn't matter if you get the woman pregnant, their kids will not have intercourse together. That's a shallow reading of it, but if that's all that Muhammad had, he could have gotten the idea of pleasure marriages from that. But again, it's more likely got the pleasure marriages from the Persians and from the pagans. But you do get this kind of mutai sounding pleasure marriage with the guys strolling into town and just grabbing one of the women. There's this funny passage right after that that's like, how could this be because any woman who was proposed to by the sages would be so excited by the prospect that they would start menstruating uncontrollably, and therefore would be impure to have intercourse with. Which is a really silly apologetic. Like, hey, these sages are so well known and so desirable by women that they cause them to menstruate when thinking about marrying them for a day.
That's like rock star back then.
Oh yeah, man. So they do have apologetics against this practice, but there are two different rabbis who would do this. They would just go to places and be like, "Hey, who wants to be my wife?"
Yeah. So
for the caveat, the nuance,
that's
but
what Dawa guys do. You
Yeah.
see that? You see
they
that?
go on trips without their wives.
Yeah, the Dawa guys do the same thing. See that? That proves that Islam is stolen from the Talmud.
Yeah. So you got your muta marriages, and then you also got the women or fields to be plowed. Now there is a caveat here with the dating of Parakh Rabbi Eliezer. This might be contemporary, it might be after Muhammad. It's hard to tell. Some of the materials for sure after Muhammad because it talks about the Dome of the Rock. But other parts of it talks about the Christians in a way and the Jews in a way where their practices are still in Jerusalem. So it's written, a lot of its content comes from a time period in which the Jews are in control of Jerusalem. Well, after Islam, they lost control of Jerusalem. So at least its content may predate Islam. So whenever I quote Rabbi Eliezer, there's always going to be a debate between Muslims on the dating of the content. So anytime you see this exact book, it's one of the books that you're like, okay, this could be, it could not be. So we don't know which of these influenced the other. But in Surah 2:223, you get your women are a field for you, so go to your field as you will, and send before you and for your souls and fear Allah, and you'll know that He will meet you, and so on and so on. But your women are a tilth. You can go and tilth your field however you desire. So if the sex position doesn't matter, the time of day doesn't matter, and it doesn't matter if they want to, they kind of have to. That's part of the responsibility of being a wife in Islam. And in Perki Rabbi Eliezer, we have, I will slay Abel my brother, and I will take his twin sister from him, as it is said, and it came to pass when they were in the field. And the field means woman who is compared to a field.
That'd be a good one for like a short video.
Yeah, I've been making short videos. For those who haven't checked out the channel since last time, I've been putting out 5 to 15 minute or 5 to 10 minute videos on different parts of the connections. So far, I've done a lot of stuff on Judgment Day and on the Pillars of Islam.
All right, so
I have another one coming out. Those are coming out every Monday and Friday.
Yep, that's a good approach. And guys, you have the link to Chris's channel in the description to go check out the shorter videos. You'll want to check those out, learn the material, and share it.
Yes. Now the idea of the go in however you feel is pretty common, especially in Nidarim, which is talking a lot about the marriage relationships, what a husband and a wife do together. So we get in 20b-4, rather, whatever a man wishes to do with his wife, he may do. He may engage in sexual intercourse with her in any manner that he wishes, and need not concern himself with these restrictions. As an allegory, it is like meat that comes from the butcher. If he wants to eat it with salt,
meat
he
in
may
a
eat
butcher
it that way.
store window.
If he wants to eat it roasted, he may eat it roasted. If he wants it cooked, it's cooked. If he wants it boiled, it's boiled. Likewise with regard to the fish that came from the fisherman, and it does the same thing over and over. So I just cut it there. But you can do whatever you want with your wife. There's no restriction. And later on in the passage, it says that the Gemara relates, a certain woman came before Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi to complain about her husband. She and said to him, "My teacher, I set a table using euphemism to say that she lay before him during intimacy, and he turned it over." Rabbi Yehuda Nasi said to her, "My daughter, the Torah permitted him to engage in sexual intercourse with you, even in an atypical manner. What can I do for you if he does so?" So you get that this woman laid on her back, and she's like, "I set him a table. There's this bounty before him, and he turns me over, so he can't look at my face or my dangly parts." And the teacher's like, "I mean, he can do whatever he wants." Now, there is a debate on whether or not this means anal, or if it means just like
Just a different
doggy.
position. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Doggy stuff.
it's
Yeah.
hard
Matter
to
of fact,
tell.
you see that in the. I mean that's what was interesting as you're reading this, because in the Muslim sources, part of the background of Surah 2 verse 223 is that there were Jews who were saying, if you have sex not in missionary position, then your child's going to be born cross-eyed.
Right.
The Jews were telling the Muslims that.
That comes from the Talmud.
What? Oh, nice.
Yeah. So this is actually the Sunan Abi Dawud 2164, what you were just talking about.
Oh, you have it. Oh, okay.
This one over here. Yeah. So again, we have from in front, from behind, or laying on the back. You can do it however you want, as long as you're doing it in the vagina. Because in Islam, you have a ban on from the butt and from the bleeding orifice, and also from the mouth. So you have these prohibitions, and you have these in the rabbis. They have a lot of different statements. There's statements like the woman has to be on her back and the man has to be in front of him. Then other rabbis debate it. So one of the rabbinic positions within the debate is that exact missionary position that the Hadith mentions. And it also mentions that there are rabbis who take it that if you have intercourse in various ways, you have different things happening to the children. If you do it the wrong way, they can become an epileptic. They can die during pregnancy. The women can die from the process. They can become just sick, generally speaking. They can get diarrhea. So they have all these random things that are happening in it. You also get a list of deformities that the baby will inherit based on the cleanliness of the people whenever they're doing it, the position they're doing it in, and whether or not they bless God before and after, which sounds fairly familiar. But you also get in Bereshit Rabbah a ban on certain types of intercourse. As we just mentioned, Islam bans menstruation and through the anus. Well, in Bereshit Rabbah 18:5, it has a Noahide who has unnatural intercourse with his wife incurs liability for the death penalty. This phrase, unnatural intercourse, is a euphemism for either oral or through the anus. How does one arrive at this? And he shall cleave to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. In the place that one can produce flesh, child, therefore the vagina. Nida 66a, all of it pretty much bans menstruation. If you read this, it's not really a chapter, they have different words for it. But if you read this section, the entire section is about the laws of menstruation. So just this whole thing is about, I'm not going to quote all of it, so just go read it. And then Yomot 34b 3-5, the Gemara responds, and Onan engaged in sexual intercourse in an atypical manner, i.e. anal intercourse. This indicates that he too died the same death for performing the same transgression as his brother. This is in a very long section on what and Onan did in order to have God's wrath upon them and why they died. Some of the rabbinic understanding was they had intercourse through the anus and they spilt their seed inside of that instead of the vagina. Some of them were like they were doing oral. And again, in that section in Genesis, it says explicitly he was killed for spilling his seed on the ground. So most of the rabbis were like, oh, if you do anything that doesn't result in the seed going into the right hole, you are going to be cursed, you're going to die, it's prohibition. So you do get in some places that you can do whatever you want, and you might even be able to say like, oh, this rabbi here approved of his husband or the husband doing it to the wife. We have other places where they seem to be countering it, that they're against any form of sodomy or oral intercourse or any other forms of intimacy that doesn't end up with the sperm inside of the right hole. That exact ban we see mirrored in the prophetic voice of Muhammad. And he's not really a prophet, but he says the same thing in Sunan Abi Dawud 3904. So we have bans on certain types of intercourse, which is interesting, and we also have acceptance in being able to do anything you want sexually outside of those. Now, you can also make a case, a bad case, that they allow wife beating. I don't actually have the passages on screen because I don't want people to use it out of context. So there are passages that talk about how there's a certain class of people, the people of essentially like perdition, but it's the people of the land is the name for it. I'm just not going to say it because, again, I don't want people Googling this to be able to find it because and use it against the Jews unfairly. Over and over and over, I'm going to bring up a lot of places, they explicitly say beating your wife is evil. But there is a place where you can get that beating a bad woman, a woman who is rebellious, is acceptable. They have punishments, varying levels of punishments of a rebellious wife. And most of it is financial punishments. You have that their dowry is decreased every week for 7 weeks until they have nothing, and then you can divorce them. You also have certain times where it is like mandatory divorces to a rebellious wife. So you don't have the sort of 434 with the verbal abuse, the not having intercourse and beating them. That exact formula seems to be Islamic in origin, not rabbinic. So there is this one of these passages of this is original to Muhammad, or it was inspired by the pagan practices that he was living in. But it's not coming from the Jews, largely speaking. There is a phrase here that an ignoramus strikes his wife. So, like, if you marry your daughter to an ignoramus, one who doesn't study the Torah, so if you don't study the Torah, the rabbis had such a bad opinion of you that I actually included this passage down here, which is quite intense. But if you are selling your wife, if you're marrying your wife off to a person who refuses to study Torah, then it is as if you gave them to a lion. Why? Because the lion mauls its prey and eats and has no shame. So too, an ignoramus strikes his wife and then engages in sexual relations with her without appeasing her first and has no shame. So this is actually a condemnation on some of the practices that Muhammad allowed and practiced. So to say that the wife beating came from it.
There is a parallel in the hadith with that one where Muhammad said that if you beat your wife like you beat your slave, then you shouldn't approach her for sex right afterwards. But that's
interesting.
Yeah, it seems to be a distinction between how you'd beat a wife and beat a slave. Like the wife, you're not supposed to beat too severely, even though we've got hadith where a woman was beaten until her skin turned green. But apparently you could beat the slave worse, and if you shouldn't if you beat your wife like you beat your slave, then you shouldn't approach her for sex afterwards.
Right. There's lots of things about admonishing your wife and how you can do discipline because the husband is in charge of the wife in the Talmudic material. But again, a lot of it is related to. And I'll read some of the beautiful passages on marriage in a second because I deliberately wanted to bring some of them up because I knew the gropers and other people might use this as an unfair attack against the Talmud and against Jews. And I want to be at least respectful to the point of there's a lot of material in the Talmud I think is apparent and evil. There's a lot of it that is benign and good, or benign or good, but you can take it out of context and make it evil. I want to have the Talmud be saying what it's actually saying and not using it outside of what you should be using it for. So this is one of the statements on an ignoramus. So later on in this passage, or I guess right before this passage, in Pesachim 49b4, Rabbi Elazar said, it is permitted to stab an ignoramus, one who doesn't study the Torah, to death on Yom Kippur that occurs on Shabbat. The students said to him, Master, at least say that it is permitted to slaughter him. He said to them, I intentionally use the word stab, as this term slaughtering requires a blessing when one slaughters an animal, and that term stabbing does not require a blessing in any context.
Nice.
So this gets into the halal practices of animal slaughtering, where you profess God's name over it, you profess a blessing over it. The Jews did that too. But you get the rabbis really, really, really hate the ones who are not willing to study Torah. And they even say that anyone who doesn't study Torah is going to be in hell forever. So, pretty intense language. Not all the rabbis are saying this, rather. This is just this dude's crashing out over the topic. So again, this is not representative of all of the Talmud. This is just representative of this guy. Which, whenever you're reading the Talmud, you have to remember that it's a debate. It's a book of debates. So not all of it is. There's not really blanket acceptance of most things in the Talmud. But I do want to point out that there are lots of beautiful passages about love and respect and honor within a marriage in the Jewish sources. A man should not project excessive fear in his household. And part of the reason for this is because his wife is responsible for keeping his household together. Rabbi Hillel said, a person must always be careful about sustaining the honor of his wife, as blessing is found in a person's house only because of his wife, as is stated in allusion to this, and he dealt well with Abraham for her sake, and he had sheep and oxen. Speaking of Sarah, any man who does not have a wife is left without joy, without blessing, without goodness. And Rambam, Maimonides, said in Mishnah Torah, his famous work, thus commanded the sages, a man should honor his wife more than his own body and love her like his own body. Now that sounds very biblical with Paul, but this is the rabbinic position, largely speaking. They don't hate women. They love women. They honor them. They respect them. Now, women are still second-class citizens in a lot of ways, but it's not the same. I don't want to show that like it's the same as Islam, because Islam is markedly worse. You do also have the stoning for adultery and the witnesses requirements. So Rabbi Yossi says a defendant is never executed unless the mouths of two witnesses are those who warn him. As it is stated, at the mouth of two witnesses or at the mouth of three witnesses shall he be put to death. So this gets into a lot of things, but specifically adultery. And you need two witnesses. This seems to be an apologetic within the Quran where he's actually upping the number to 4. In the Talmud, there's a discussion of if it was up to the rabbis, there would not be any executions within 80 years, or like there should be like one execution per 80 years, and that would be a violent court. So their standard of evidence is actually unusually high, and they slowly did away the practice of stoning to death because their burden of proof was so high it was just impossible to get. Well, Islam seems to have adopted that jurisprudence and even doubled it to have the witnesses to be 4 instead of 2. But it does it, and you remember the hadith about like what does the Torah say, and they bring forward the Torah and it says that okay, these are the witnesses. It says okay, that's what we're going to do. It seems to be that the 2 witnesses is also used in Surah 2. So in some places it seems to be elevating the witnesses to 4, other places it seems to be keeping it at 2, but it does have the same legal precedent of the number of witnesses and the type of witnesses and the witnesses and what they can do and say. Because in the Talmud, it also has witnesses can't be related, or if they are related, another witness needs to be in the mix as well. So it can't be 2 brothers witnessing to something. It has to be 2 brothers plus another person. So a lot of the jurisprudence around witnesses and stoning and the punishments are pretty identical, which gets back into all of the jurisprudence of Islam being pretty much the same. This gets into my favorite section of the presentation. I don't know if you want to take any super chats. I kind of have to go to the bathroom real quick.
Oh, go ahead. I'll take a couple super chats real quick.
Yep.
Let's see. Instead of saying like butter spread over too much bread to describe fatigue, I suggest we start using the phrase like smo spread by too many zut. That would be a good way of describing fatigue, because Muhammad, just passed out afterwards. Let me copy your homework, but change a word so the teacher doesn't notice. Yep, that is the Quran. Chat, help me find my son's pacifier. I don't know how that would happen. Contemporary Sebios, the Armenian, confirmed Muhammad began as a Jew ally to reclaim land from Rome. English translation in Hagarism, The Birth of the Islamic World. Muhammad loved the Jews at first, and then they rejected him, and then they were evil. after that. The plagiarism makes sense when we know Muhammad was a traitor. Can we make a timeline of his travels and Jewish tribes locations?
Yes, we
No.
can. I have a partial version of that in the book.
No, you can't. You cannot make a timeline of his travels. You don't have enough information.
Well, not all the travels,
Okay.
not for like Syria and Persia and Yemen. But you have the Jewish tribe locations, and you have the people he had access to that had the knowledge, like his Ethiopian nurse, his cousin, his wife's slave.
Oh yeah,
Khadijah's
we know where he
slave.
was getting information from.
Yeah, I have that in the book for his possible sources of narration.
Let's see, 434. That like button. Jews have 613 commandments. None of them come from the Talmud. Is that true?
That's not actually 613, but that is true.
I didn't know that Ragnarok was based on a Jewish and Norse mix, but I am more into Greek mythology. I do know the Jewish Christians' theory of the sirens. And one more. Let's see. The Talmud says, don't urinate 4 cubits from a wall to avoid blocking a demon's path. No rabbi that I know believes that stuff today. Wrong. They all do it, and they all quote that as they're worshiping Ezra.
I have that in the presentation for today.
Oh, nice. All right, you ready to go?
There's a decent bit of focus on the. Yeah, let's do it. So this is the meme section of the presentation. This is most of the memes that people are familiar with, and a list of things that I have not been able to find so far that I'm very sad about. So these are things that are original to Muhammad. So the eyes or the leather strap of the anus seems to be true poetry of the prophet.
Yeah, find that one in the Talmud, everyone.
Anything that's. I cannot find anything. I have searched for the eyes or the leather strap of the anus. I have not been able to find it. Child marriage is outright condemned by the Jews in pretty much every society that he interacted with. So that seems to be, and including his own society, they were very not okay with the 6-year-old marriage type stuff. And he wasn't okay with his daughter being married whenever she was like twice the age of Aisha. Sex slaves are not Jewish. They are not Christian. Actually, you are like condemned to death for having sex slaves, for practicing sex slaves. In the Bible, you can't even have a sex slave. Like if you have intercourse with a slave, she's no longer a slave. She automatically grants her freedom, and she is a lifelong wife to you, so you have to financially support her forever, and she can choose to not have intercourse with you for the rest of your life. So you have lost your slave, and you then have to pay for her well-being for the rest of her life. So sex slavery is deeply anti-biblical. It's deeply anti-rabbinic, but it's very common, and he's probably getting this from the pagans. Remarriage via intercourse to another man first is the opposite of what the Bible teaches, where if you want to remarry the same woman, you have to have another man sleep with her first. That is the exact opposite of the Bible, and the rabbis don't endorse that. I haven't been able to find that in the Persian ideas either. So maybe we can find this one, but I haven't found it in another source either. Finger licking seems to be original, where you have to lick off your fingers after you eat to get all the blessings from God.
Gross.
As far as I can tell, the rabbis don't believe the blessings are in the food itself to where you have to consume it. They instead bless the food verbally and then eat it because they're a little bit more intelligent than eating. Like they're way less superstitious, although the Babylonian rabbis are very superstitious when it comes to witchcraft and demons, which we'll get to in a little bit. The Garkid tree, the tree that snitches, is not the closest you get is like Norse theology. And even then he has no way, I don't think he has a way to actually get that idea from them. But the Garkid tree is original, Jizya is original. So the things that like supply him with money and women seem to be original. The Satanic verses are also original. I could not find anywhere that God, because it has a Jewish context, I couldn't find anywhere in the Jewish sources that Satan deliberately casts falsehood mixed with the true revelation, or that prophets deal with this problem. In the Bible, if you have anything from Satan, you are a false prophet, you are to be put to death. From the rabbi's perspective, if you have anything from Satan, that's evil. The closest you can get is demons talk to people, but it's more like jinn than it is like proper Satan. So the satanic verses incident seems to be original to Muhammad, and the apologetic seems to be original to explain the problem. Bismillah before intercourse. There's Bismillah before food by the Jews, but not before intercourse. They do say it after. There is some rabbis that say like, if you derive pleasure from anything, you have to say a blessing to God before you do it. That could be the source for this one, so this one might be able to get checked off, but it's a weaker connection than the other connections. His hatred for dogs might come from superstition of Babylonians, because they think that the dog is one of the signs of a witch. And there's also some stuff from the Persians where you get the dogs are the guardians of the underworld, and they hate them for that. So that might be why he hates dogs, or he just hates dogs. And the one that I couldn't find anywhere was specifically severing the aorta of a false prophet. So the highest of ironies is one of the only original things Muhammad ever taught was that if he was a false prophet, his aorta would be severed, and we have a hadith about his aorta being severed. Amazing. So far, this is like what is original to Muhammad that I have not been able to find.
So
mostly intercourse stuff.
Yeah, we can actually put. Yeah, so it'll take a while, but we'll get everything on the list that is actually from Muhammad.
Yeah. So here's a fun one. It's also a contradiction. So in Surah 31 and in Surah 46, we have two different time periods given for weaning. And in Surah 31, it's 2 years, it's 24 months. In Surah 46, it is 30 months, but this includes the pregnancy time period. So it is so the bearing of him and weaning of him is 30 months. So this is either a scientific impossibility of a 6-month pregnancy in Arabia in the 7th century, or it is a contradiction where it's 21 months and 24 months. So this is a mathematical contradiction within the Quran, and it's plagiarized. So in Ketubot 60a, I pronounced that horribly, the period of time during which a child nurses, the Gemara continues to debate different aspects of this matter. The sages taught in a Burida, a child may continue to nurse until the age of 24 months, and from this point forward, if he continues to nurse, he is like one who nurses from a non-kosher animal, as a woman's milk is forbidden to anyone other than a small child. This is the statement of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yosha says a child may continue to nurse even for 4 or 5 years, and this is permitted. However, if he ceased, i.e. was weaned after 24 months and then resumed nursing, he is like one who nurses from a non-kosher animal. So this is a contradiction and plagiarism. This may have also been plagiarized from the Greeks. We have 4 Greek physicians that talk about the period of weaning. One of them gives 1 year, I believe that's Aristotle. One that gives 18 months, one that gives 24 months, and one of them gives an indefinite time period. So you could possibly make a case he's getting it from the Greeks because he gets a lot of his biological stuff from the Greeks. But you also have this passage in the rabbinic sources that predate him by 180 years. So, contradiction, probably plagiarism from either the Greeks or Jews. You also have people being turned into apes. So, in Sanhedrin 109a, as what did they do? It's talking about the Jews who rebelled against God. Let us build a tower, ascend into heaven, and cleave it with axes that its waters might gush forth. They split up into 3 parties. One said, let us ascend and dwell there. The second, let us ascend and worship the gods. And the third said, let us ascend and wage war with God. The one that said, let us ascend and wage war, we turned into apes, spirits, devils, and night demons. And then again, later on, it says, in top of that faction, let us ascend to the tower, top of the tower, and wage war. They became apes, spirits, demons, and female demons. So we have God transforming people specifically into apes for waging war against him, for not listening to him, for breaking his rules. And in Surah 265, we get, and you know about those among you who broke the Sabbath, how we said to them, be apes, despised and hated. And in Surah 5, shall I tell you of a worse case than theirs for retribution with Allah? He whom Allah has cursed, on whom has fallen his wrath, and whose sort Allah has turned some into apes, pigs, and slaves of Taut. These are demons. So the slaves of Taut, these are the spirits and demons. So we have the spirits and demons and apes. The pigs I couldn't find initially. I don't know if it's there somewhere, but that might be new to Muhammad as well. But the demons and apes come from Sanhedrin. And this is also from a passage that he quotes for their theology on Judgment Day. So,
well, in the Hadith, you find out that he believed that Jews were transformed into some animals, but for a while he wasn't sure which. So he didn't want to eat the lizard because there might be little lizards, and he thought that mice and rats could be Jews that Allah turned into mice and rats. So for a while he thought they were transformed into animals, but just didn't know which animals. So
right.
Yeah, might have just concluded.
He did a stream with Mary Arb on that a couple of weeks ago, if anyone wants to check it out. Yeah. He's scared of cannibalism, so he didn't want to do it. But we have, again, people turning into apes from the Jewish sources. Which is awesome, man. We also have the improper peeing. So, 3 people I have loved, 3 people I've hated, and 4th I have not loved. A minister who frequents drinking houses. So if you get drunk, he hates you. As he disgraces himself and leads himself to ruin and death, that is the first that he hated. And the others are the one who dwells at the highest point of the city, where everyone sees him, and one who holds his penis and urinates. And the 4th, whom he has not loved, is one who enters the house of another suddenly without warning. Rabbi Yohanan says, and this includes even one who comes into his own house without prior warning, as the members of his household may be engaged in private activities. Many of those sound like things Muhammad said. Specifically, the peeing and urinating one I just find funny. With you can't stand while peeing, you have to squat in order to avoid peeing on your clothes. You also have the hatred for those who get drunk. So, hey, don't get drunk, and you have don't enter into people's houses suddenly. Well, in several sections in the Quran and in the Hadith, we get that you have to greet houses, you have to enter into houses a certain way. And in Surah 33, he complains that, oh, ye believers, do not enter the houses of the Prophet unless leave be given you for a meal, not watching till it is cooked. But when you are invited, then enter, and when you have fed, disperse, not engaging with familiar discourse. Verily, that would annoy the Prophet, and he would be ashamed for your sake, but a God is not ashamed of the truth. So he's too shy to tell everyone, hey, I hate it whenever you come over to my house, but leave. We do have the idea of multiple times in the Talmud, it's not the only time, multiple times in the Talmud, you are not supposed to enter into people's houses, you're not supposed to barge in. And then Allah's Messenger said, the prayer of a person does not, who does hadath, if you pee, poop, or fart, is not accepted till he performs the ablution. You have to clean yourself. This also gets into the wiping. So in Pescayim 109b 4-5, a person should not eat in pairs, i.e. an even number of food items, nor he should not drink pairs of cups, and he should not wipe himself with pairs. So if you have to wipe yourself, an odd number of times. You cannot do anything an even number of times. And he should not attend to sexual needs in pairs. The concern was that one who uses pairs exposes himself to sorcery and demons. So this is part of the section that I said that you will become dumber for reading. This whole section from 109b to 112b is really funny. It's quite an entertaining read. If you just want to have fun, spend a good 30 minutes reading something that's entertaining, this is a pretty entertaining section. This whole section is about the dangers of demons and what demons can do to you, and the dangers of witches and what witches can do to you. I only take a couple snippets because to read the whole section takes literally 20 to 30 minutes. But this whole section is a lot of fun to read. And it is all about having pairs in the way you're supposed to be doing things. You're not supposed to be drinking certain numbers of cups of wine. And there's this 2 to 3 page section of what is acceptable and what's not acceptable for the cups of wine you're allowed to drink. It's pretty entertaining. Rav Naaman said that the verse said, it was a night of watching to the Lord, which indicates that Passover night is a night that remains guarded from demons and harmful spirits of all kinds. This is because on Passover, you're supposed to drink 4 cups of wine, which is actually a typology of Jesus, which is a pretty cool study you can do for the Christians in the audience, studying the 4 cups and how they relate to Jesus, especially the 3rd cup, which is the cup he rose and said, this is my blood poured out to you. That's the cup of salvation. Anyway, therefore, there is no cause for concern about this from a danger on this particular night. And then it keeps going. It's talking about the cups you can drink. Well, it does talk about how the king of hell is Ashmedai, and he is the one who is in charge of all things that happen in twos. If you do anything in an even number, this king of demons is in charge of it. But we also have, okay, what is the justification for this practice of freaking out about twos? Well, the rabbis of the Mishnah in Jerusalem said, with regard to 2 eggs, 2 nuts, 2 cucumbers, and another matter, there is a halakha transmitted to Moses from Sinai that they are dangerous in pairs, i.e., they expose you to the dangers of demons, and just your life could be ended because of it. There are actually things that are said like, hey, if you do this in pairs, you are going to die, which is kind of there's a lot of superstition coming out of Babylon in this passage, but the Jerusalem Talmud doesn't include it. The Jerusalem Talmud doesn't have any of a lot of the folklore, a lot of the demonology, a lot of the superstition is not coming from Jerusalem, it's coming from Babylon. So the Babylonians influenced the rabbis at that location, and they were adding in all of this folklore, all of this superstition into the Talmud to explain things. And the reason why they were freaked out about pairs is because the sages were not, they didn't know what this other matter was. So like, hey, let's just forbid all even things. And in Sahih Muslim 1300, you get that odd number of stones are needed to clean your butt. So you have to do everything in odd numbers.
Yeah, and Allah eventually, in another hadith Muhammad explains, but it's Allah is odd. Because he's one. He's an odd number.
Yeah.
And therefore he loves odd and hates even.
Yeah. So, God hates even things. Interesting. It's funny. All right, so then you also get a demon telling him. So the origin of this source is a demon. This happens a couple different times that one of the rabbis is conversing with their own personal demons, or the demons are named because the demons are essentially jinn. They act like jinn. They operate like jinn. They can have intercourse. They can reproduce. They can fly. They can be invisible. They can be visible. Like a lot of the theology of jinn matches pretty closely with the theology of the shaitans in the Talmud, and that's the same word used. We also have the Seds, I think is how you pronounce it, which is another word for the demons, and those demons are mostly just the jinn. So in later on in the section, there are 4 matters. The one who performs them is his blood is upon his own head, so he is liable for his own life due to the evil spirit that rests upon him. So if you do these things, you could die because of the demon that is following you at all times. So one who relieves himself in a spot between a palm tree and a wall, one who passes between 2 palm trees, and one who drinks borrowed water, and one who passes over spilled water, even if his wife poured it out in front of him. So if you do these 4 superstitious things, you could die according to demons, or by demons. With regard to one who relieves himself between a palm tree and a wall, we said that if he places himself in danger only when there are not 4 cubits of space between the 2 objects. However, if there are 4 cubits of space, we have no problem with it. The demons have enough room to pass, so they will not be obstructed. And he will not obstruct them. And furthermore, even when there are not 4 cubits, we said there is a problem only when the demons have no other route besides that one. However, if they have another route, we have no problem with it. So the idea of like demons living in the world with us just invisibly is very rabbinic. And you have to do all these weird random things in the Babylonian version to appease the demons, because the demons are basically like trickster spirits. They're very petty, and they do things just to annoy you. And whenever a Jew messes up or sins, it says that Satan laughs and then dances. So the whole the Jewish dancing meme from 9/11, you could apply it to Satan in the Talmud. But you have them doing these weird random things of like, they make you sleep in too late and you miss studying the Torah. They make you not wake up to be able to study the Torah before dawn. They make you it's not quite yawning, but like the idea of yawning is frowned upon by the rabbis because it shows that you're being lazy, or you're not taking your Torah study seriously, and demons will laugh at it. or demons will mock you because you're not serious about it. So you have a lot of the random one-off statements of, oh, Satan pees in your ear to keep you from hearing the call to prayer, or whenever you yawn, Satan laughs at you, so therefore don't yawn. Those type of random statements could be coming from the rabbis, or from at least uh, the traditions of the rabbis or the communities there, how they were influenced by this level of uh, freaking out about all the demons all around you at all the time. You also have Allah having two right hands. And this one I love so much because it is all over the place. So I brought up a bunch of sources so people know that I'm not just like making it up. But this is mostly an exegesis of Exodus 15:6, which says that your right hand, Lord, glorious in power, your right hand, Lord, shatters the enemy. So that is a passage from the Bible, and a bunch of rabbis interpret it as him having two right hands because of it. So in Shemot Rabbah 22b, or 22:2, so too Israel said to the Holy One, blessed be he, let there be peace upon your two hands, one that rescues us from the sea, and one that tosses the Egyptians. So then it is right hand, glorious in power, so the rescuing, glory, your right hand, Lord, shatters the enemy, toss the Egyptians. So the two hands here are identified as a right hand with power and a right hand that smashes the enemy. So in this section, Allah has two right hands. And in Shemot 18:2, we have, but is there actually a left hand on high? No. And then it goes through a long explanation. I didn't want to include it because I wanted to try to fit in as many of these as possible, but you can go read it for yourself. And then in Bishalach 15:3, we have, thy right hand, O Lord, glorious in power, the right hand dasheth in pieces the enemy. Why is thy right hand repeated in these verses? To indicate that when the Israelites do the will of the omnipresent, they make his left hand to act as his right hand. But if they fail to do his will, as though that were possible, they make his right hand become his left hand. As it is said, he hath drawn back his right hand. The as though that were possible indicates the predestination, and people don't actually have free will, and that whole the idea of qadar, where you have divine, everything is planned out ahead of time, everything's in the book of law, everything's happening according to his book, no one has free will, everything's going to happen that's going to happen. That idea comes from the Jews as well. That comes from Sanhedrin and Rosh Hashanah, if I'm remembering correctly, and I think a couple other places. But that is influencing it here. Interestingly, there are other passages, because these other ones are basically repeats of the ones above. But you have the right hand. One of his hands was submerging them, and the other hands was rescuing you. As is stated, your right hand, Lord, your right hand, Lord. So that's basically how they're doing it. It's how they're using it. Is they're saying either from Exodus 15, hey, he has two hands because it repeats right hand twice, or they're saying that if the Jews are good, his left hand becomes a right hand. If they're bad, his right hand becomes a left hand. So then he'll have two left hands. There's the majority of the Talmud actually says that he has both, and that on his left hand is a phylactery all the time, and then on his right hand he's like governing the world. So on his left hand he's basically praying for the people, or like being in constant remembrance of the Jewish people, and then the right hand he's governing the universe. So it's the majority position of the rabbis is that he has a right hand and a left hand. It's a minority position to show that he has two right hands. So the Quran is copying a minority position within the rabbinic tradition, that he has two right hands. I have not seen anything else other than
he's clarifying who was right.
This is one of the corrections.
Mm-hmm. He's consciously correcting.
The other possible mode of explanation is it is a polemic against Hubal for the pagan origins of Islam, with the Quraysh tribe and like the Mecca and Kaaba, and like they worship Hubal, and Hubal was associated with the hands because he did divining arrows and that whole shebang. That's the only other source I could think of that I could find. Other than that, this seems to be one of the sources, or the source, for the two right hands idea. So the Frankensteinian monster of Allah seems to have some basis with the rabbis. Which is pretty fun.
Mm-hmm. By the way, this whole hands thing, that's a good separate video going through the passages about
Oh yeah.
the two hands and then the Muslim sources.
Yeah. So, those who are just and fair will be with Allah Most High on thrones of light at the right hand of the Most Merciful. Those who are just in their rulings and their dealings with their families and those of whom they charge. Muhammad, one of the narrators, said in this hadith, both of his hands are right hands. So this is the source for the Muslim sources that his hands are right. And I think that's it for this version of it. And I have a lot more material we could go through, but I didn't want to do too long of a presentation. So
yeah, that's good.
Want to do more? We can do more. I have more, but
no, it's better to divide it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. For everyone who's watching, who's new to this, pretty typical if we talk about God's hands or something like that. In Christianity, that you would understand you're being metaphorical, but in Islam, and you have Muslims who would interpret it that way, but it's more difficult. It's more difficult to avoid interpreting hands as literal hands in Islam, because Allah says things like the difference between Adam and everything else is that Allah created Adam with his two hands. And so Muslim commentators have pointed out, well, hands can't be like some metaphor for power or something like that, because Allah creates everything with his power. And therefore, if he says, hey, here's how I created everything, but Adam is unique because I created him with my own two hands, the commentator said, well, that means he's got two hands and so on. So again, you do have Muslims who still, in spite of that, interpret it as metaphorical and so on. But you have very large groups like Salafis and so on who interpret what the Quran and Hadith say about Allah's various body parts as literal. They say you can't understand it. Don't try to picture it. Don't try to get an image of Allah in your head. But yes, he actually has these body parts. And they won't say that he has any body part that is not explicitly mentioned. And this is what Mufti Abu Layth, one of the things that people got mad at Mufti Abu Layth, who's a Muslim, but he would just mock the Salafis for, it's like, you're describing a gremlin here. Say that what you've described is a gremlin. And he goes, it's a hilarious video. He goes, and they'll tell you, don't try to picture it. It's like, too late. Too late. As soon as you describe Allah with all these body parts and stuff like this, and that's all you know, it's too late. You're a human being. You can't help but try to picture things. So yeah.
I did try to find his shin in the rabbinic sources. I could not find it. There was no mention of the shin.
That would have been an interesting one. The shin, because that's really big in Islam, guys, and that's the only way to recognize Allah on Judgment Day. Is you got to know what his shin looks like. All right, let's take these last couple super chats and we'll go ahead and close out. You missed my earlier super chat. No, I didn't. You missed me reading your earlier super chat. Nice try, though. Samuel El Jahid Al Zut. I don't know what this is. Is this from a movie or something? So it's not. I'm guessing this is from a Samuel L. Jackson movie. I don't know that one. Chat, y'all suck. I had to DoorDash another passy. That was for someone who was asking for help finding a pacifier. Totally novel presentation. Bravo.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess we can't say the Quran is totally novel, but yeah, this presentation. What about the odd number of rocks thing? Is that OG Islam? Yeah, he already went through it. So yeah, the reasoning there is you had the Talmud, and you didn't want to do things in pairs, and so Muhammad just said, "Hey, it's got to be." And there it was because this somehow gave demons magical powers over you if you were doing things in pairs. So Muhammad rolls with that. Yep. Odd numbers, but he says it's because Allah is odd. Allah is odd. He's one. So he likes odd numbers, does not like even numbers.
It does explicitly mention that you should not wipe yourself in pairs. Mm-hmm. So even the poop wiping thing is explicitly there.
Thanks, Chris, for putting this info together. Zutta in Midrash, small or minor. Sifri Zutta. Al Zutta. And whatever happened, just remember, Mo didn't zoot himself. That's true. He needed help. He needed help with that. All right, Chris, any final summary thoughts on everything? You're a little out of sync now, but it doesn't matter. You were covered up most of the time.
Okay. No. Like, we'll be working on this for several months. It's probably, like, this is still the preliminary research. We've only been doing this for a couple months. So probably around this time next year, we'll have the book done, and we'll have a lot of it written out and available. I'll be updating. So the links in the beginning of this and in the descriptions of the videos I'm making is going to have the up-to-date version of the book as I'm like updating it in real time. So everyone will have access to that. If anyone has
like everyone
things
had
that they've
access to Muhammad on the night of Al-Zut. Anyway, sorry about that. Go ahead.
If anyone like finds it, like, hey, this is really cool, you can email it to me or DM me. Yeah. But yeah, this is just the start. We're still fine. Like, it's the most impactful things in this is comparing the stories, because you can compare it to the Bible, you can compare it to the rabbinic version, you can compare it to the Quranic version, and you can see how 100% of the time it compares to the rabbinic version, none of the time it compares to the biblical version. What do you do with that? The answer is Muhammad just copied it from the rabbis. So doing the actual stories is really, really strong, and I have a lot of that in the book already. But that takes a lot of time. So even if we were just go through like all the stuff on Moses, that would take like an hour just to go through it in depth. So the stories are the big, powerful pieces, but there's a lot of fun, random tidbits, things that you wouldn't expect to be Jewish or have Jewish origins do. So
I would wait a minute. Look at this. Paul says, you skipped my timeline super chat. No, we didn't. You remember the timeline? And I said, no, you can't get a timeline. You said, but we can know where he's getting some of this stuff from. And I said, yeah, you can do that. Yeah. So in your face, Paul. Yeah. Why is everyone falsely accusing me? Hey, listen, guys, if you post a super chat and then you zone out or you go to the bathroom or something, don't be running back and be like, oh, you skipped it. You don't know. Anyway. Hey, I would recommend some sort of, if you haven't already, some sort of ranking system in that, like, lots of times you're pointing out something like, oh, that's obviously where Muhammad got it from. And other times like, well, could be where he got it from. But you could have like a 3 or 4, like,
yeah,
these are the things he definitely obviously stole. And here really looks like he stole them, but, could have gotten it from somewhere else. And here, well, it kind of looks like he got that from here. And then maybe it's possible that he got this, something along those lines. And then last super chat here. Yeah. Yes, but this does not deny Quran 548 and the Quran being the Muhaimin, or in English, supreme leader of the Jews. This is the proof, you see. Yeah, that's a awesome dawah level response. All right, everyone. So we got if you didn't catch the first one, go back there. And I would encourage everyone it's basically, most people aren't going to learn all of this, but it would be good, whatever couple of examples, whatever 2 or 3 examples you like best, or you thought were most obvious examples of Muhammad plagiarizing and so on, you can go ahead and screenshot those and start using them. And he's got the references there, so you can actually just go to the Talmud online and find it there and show your Muslim friends. Also, as I mentioned, we've got the link to Chris's channel in the description box, and his big video on the Talmudic dilemma. But yeah, learn the Talmudic dilemma, but at the very least, pick a couple of examples you like. Check out some of his shorter videos and figure out which 1 or 2 you like best, and be sure to share those all over social media. All right, guys, I don't know if I'll be live this coming week because I'll be traveling all week, although there'll be a bunch of us there. So I'm sure if we're just sitting around some evening or something like that, we might jump on live, but not sure whose channel that'll be on. So I will not be getting back until next Saturday late at night. So as far as being back here, that would have to be next Sunday. But yep, we'll see what happens, everyone. We'll see what happens. And yeah, when we get back, looking forward to reviewing some debates because apparently there was some seriously hilarious stuff. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Catch y'all next time.